I still have to use that sealing technique. It's a pity that Uchiha died. Without his part of the sage's power, mine is useless. Hey, flea-ridden shiz, ready to die for peace, thought Naruto while fighting with the goddess. Although he was stronger, but without Sasuke, he could not seal her with the power of the sage. 2 deaths will not happen, and 1 will not pass. Act already, said the fox in the subconscious of the blonde. Well, then, Mokutan, the great forest of copies of the Buddha, Naruto said, folding the one-handed seals. Tree thorns grew from the ground to the sky, which pierced the body of the goddess, preventing her from moving. Naruto came up to her and folded about 100 seals and said, forbidden technique of the Uzumaki clan, the seal of the power of life. The essence of the technique was that the one using it uses all the life forces, and the more of them, the stronger the seal. And since Naruto was from the Uzumaki clan and Jinchuriki of all tailed at the same time, his seal was almost indestructible. Naruto found himself in a dark room, the end and the edge of which was not visible. A small 9-tailed one appeared in front of him. Oh, shiz. And you're here. Well, at least it won't be boring to while away eternity. That's what's strange. We shouldn't be together in the afterlife. But before the fox could finish his thoughts, he was interrupted by an outsider, but painfully familiar voice, which, however, should not be here. Yes, they shouldn't. But you sacrificed your lives to save the world from my mother. For this, I am infinitely grateful to you. And as a reward, I give you a choice: go to rebirth or live a more peaceful life in the past. A voice echoed. Naruto and Kurama turned to his source and saw the sage of the 6 paths. Father, old man, for such sacrilege, Biju with the words, jerk, punched the top of the blond man's head. Well, what is your choice? A choice, right? If we are reborn, will we remember who we were? Rubbing his bruised head, Uzumaki asked a question. No. Your souls will be cleansed and you will live again, even with some sadness. The sage replied. Wait, father. Can't you resurrect us? Kurama asked him. No, Kurama. I spent almost all my strength when I transferred them to the reincarnations of Ashura and Indra, Rikudo said with even more sadness. Come on, fox. Is there something keeping you in that world? I'm not here. Despite my best efforts, my friends died, even though I was able to seal Kagaya, Naruto said with unexpected doom. Hey. Since when did you become such a winner? Kyubi growled at him. Old man. We can save them, right? We can, right? Ignoring the indignation of the tailed beast, the blond man shouted, yes, but once you get into the past, the course of history will change. I don't care. Synchronously shouted both. Almost not dead. So be it, Rikudo said smiling and clapped his hands. Goodbye, my children. The last words of the sage of the 6 ways sounded as if under a layer of water. Naruto's mind fell into darkness. How long he spent in this place he did not know. There was no sense of time, no space, nothing at all. It seemed that a little more and he would dissolve into her. The blond man regained consciousness rather abruptly, as if he had never been in the dark. After a cursory survey of the surroundings, he did not notice any landmarks. Damn old man, he could at least heal the wounds. Jinchuriki thought, feeling the deplorability of his current state. You're whining again, aren't you, Naruto? A voice rang out in Uzumaki's head. I'm not whining about anything. You would have stayed in my place, flee. The guy was genuinely indignant in his mind. Damn it. There are about 10% of the chakras left, no more. And it is unknown how long it will be restored, Jinchuriki muttered thoughtfully. About 2 weeks, give or take a couple of days. You have multiple wounds, ruptures of small chakra channels and mental exhaustion. To be honest, I still don't understand why you are conscious, decided to intervene in the monologue of his carrier Kurama. Clear. We need to find shelter and food before nightfall, and then we'll see. To hell with it. I don't want to go anywhere. Hey, Fleabag, pick it up if anything, and I'll go to sleep, Naruto declared and collapsed where he woke up. 6 hours later it got dark and it got colder, and Naruto didn't budge, and what's there, he didn't even move. By this point, his strength had recovered by another couple of percent. Wake up. I feel 2 strong chakra sources a kilometer away. The fox suddenly spoke. The blonde man was able to get to his feet with a noticeable effort, and having created a wooden pole with the help of a Makuten, he went to the sources of the chakra. After a good 10 minutes, he came out to the lake, where 2 girls were fighting. There was an unprecedented pogrom around, a bunch of craters with melted edges, plowed over by the roots of trees, obviously not of natural origin. Focusing his gaze on the culprits who staged the local Armageddon, he saw how they concentrated so much chakra in their fists that they were covered with blue flames. Deciding to intervene, Naruto abruptly found himself between them and grabbed them by the hands, before protecting them with the cover of kurama, thereby stopping the fight. Hey girls, do you know that it's not good to fight? Who are you? And how did you stop my punch? Ask the girl with the Uchiha coat of arms on the armor. Let me rest and answer all your questions, otherwise I'm very tired, said Naruto, and fell unconscious that he woke up already on a soft bed, in a place where there was a strong smell of medicines. Deciding to look around, he leaned on his hands and rose slightly. Looking around the room, he recognized in it something similar to a standard single hospital room. Realizing that he was not in danger, he decided to warm up. Naruto opened the window and clinging to the wall climbed to the roof. Having done a set of physical exercises, dispersing stagnant blood, the blonde began to practice blows on the most formidable opponent there. Suddenly, 2 shadows flew onto the roof, which turned out to be the same girls that he had seen on the lake. Postponing the conversations for later, Naruto did not pay any attention to them and continued to warm up. The girl with the Uchiha coat of arms could not stand at first and resolutely moved towards Uzumaki. He abruptly appeared next to her and struck with his hand from a U-turn. The hand stopped just a couple of millimeters from the girl's neck and darkness enveloped the entire space around. Instead of Naruto, a yellow demon appeared, and behind him stood a huge skeleton that held a scythe at the girl's neck. Everything disappeared as suddenly as it appeared. The blonde's eyes took on a live look, and he looked at the girls frozen in horror. Oh, girls. Hi. And I decided to warm up here. Naruto was broadcasting in his standard optimistic tone, taking the usual stance. What was that low? Stuttering, after a couple of minutes of silence, Uchiha asked. It was taijutsu, the style of the demon of death, the blonde man answered without changing his tone. After a few more minutes, Uchiha gathered her resolve and wanted to ask a question, but the second girl beat her to it. Who are you? You are clearly not an ordinary person, since you were able to survive after taking the blows of 2 shinobi gods. The second girl said thoughtfully. Naruto looked down for a couple of seconds and realized who was in front of him. So you are Hashirama, and you are Madara? And I was thinking, who do you remind me of? After standing in a stupor for another minute and shouting all the known curses in his head, he introduced himself. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Uzumaki? The Uzumaki clan has scarlet hair and they just don't leave the limits of Uzushiogakure. Hashirama said, looking suspiciously at the blonde man. Damn. I got it. I have 5 seconds at most to come up with something convincing. The blonde thought. Until recently, I lived with my grandfather. Before his death, he said that we were from the Uzumaki clan, and after that I went on a journey around the world. Naruto spoke with mock sadness. Suppose, then I have another question. How did such a strong shinobi, moreover, from the Uzumaki clan, get such wounds? We can say that I am the strongest living people with this dumbass, and you calmly, on your last breath, were able to stop us. Madara has already said. The blonde man fell into a stupor again. Well, what should I say to that? Heck. Thank Kami that she didn't activate Sharingan. Was not. On the way I met a two-tailed Biju. I had to fight, but I lost and had to retreat. Wow. And you are strong, since you were able to resist Biju alone and get away from him alive. I have a suggestion for you. Don't you want to stay in our village? Hashirama asked, flashing a wide smile in the style of Uzumaki himself. How lucky I am after all. At the same time, I was lucky in many ways, starting with the fact that I managed to lose Konoha's Hitayata, ending with the fact that they believed in this nonsense. Naruto agreed without thinking twice. The girls told him to follow them. About half an hour later they were at the residence. Our village is called Konohagakuronosato or simply Konoha. As the first Hokage, I accept you as a resident of our village from now on. Oh, right. I told my brother about you, and most likely, he will stick to you with a request to become a teacher at the academy or the captain of the genin team. Sorry, having almost whispered the last word, Hashirama sat down at the table. The academy? What's it? I decided to ask Naruto for form's sake. He knew perfectly well, but if he didn't have any questions, it would look extremely suspicious. Hashirama decided to answer him. Oh. This is my pride. The academy is a place where all shinobi from childhood will receive a decent education, regardless of whether they are in the clan or not. By the way, who are the genins? This is the minimum shinobi rank that he gets after the academy exam. After that, they will receive tasks for which they will be paid. Of course, part will go to the treasury of the village. As an intermediary, that was the end of the blonde's questions. While they were chatting, they had already managed to reach the Hokage residence. They went up together to the private office of the first. And sitting down at the table, she began to fill out some documents. 10 minutes later, all the formalities were settled. Naruto also asked where he could train, and where he could build his house. Having learned all the necessary information, Jinchuriki went to look for the place marked on the map. To his surprise, Madara decided to go with him, as she said, to practice too. Having reached the destination, which turned out to be a solid-sized clearing in front of the river, Naruto divided it in half with the blade of the wind, so as not to interfere with each other in training. The girl created a shadow clone and began practicing taijutsu with him, vaguely resembling the future style of the clan. The blonde also began to train fire techniques. Unlike his native element of wind, or the forces of Biju, the element of fire submitted to him not too willingly. In other respects, like everyone else, although everything was a little easier with water, but it was far from the level of the same wind. Damn. So you can stay here until the second coming of Kaguya. And what if we try like this? Naruto thought and took a deep breath, dived into the river. Sitting down on a flat stone found at the bottom, he began to fold the seals with one hand and exhale quite large waves of fire. Even for him, it's very difficult. Although no, not like that. Very difficult. Not only was the air in his lungs far from infinite, his chakra supply was also far from full recovery, so it was also necessary to overcome the resistance of a solid mass of water. After about 10 minutes of such training, the water in the river began to heat up noticeably, despite the current. To protect against the ever-increasing temperature, Naruto simply created a wooden armor, similar to the one that Hashirama or Gaara made from his sand. After about an hour, the river became noticeably shallow and half of the blonde's body was already towering over the water surface. He had run out of air a long time ago, so he had to create it as well, while immediately in his lungs. Deciding that this was more than enough, Uzumaki climbed ashore. Hey, Naruto or whatever your name is, are you alive? What's it? The girl asked, looking at the wooden man. She knew only one person capable of using Mokuton. And the blonde was clearly not the one who was included in the list of users of the element of the tree. And what was that? Explain yourself, Madara said, looking at Uzumaki in surprise. Well, I decided that the usual training is too ineffective. And it will be more interesting to practice in the river. Oh. By the way, do you want to spar in taijutsu? I don't mind, but only if you answer my question, Madara said suspiciously, squinting at Jinchuriki. Of course, it's not difficult for me, Naruto said, smiling broadly. Where did you get the Makuten? It sounded almost like a sentence. Damn. Idiot. Moron. Stupid. How could I have made such a stupid mistake? At the same time, Hashirama is the only user of the tree element. So. Calmly. We need to figure out how to get away. Uzumaki mentally berated himself. Well, I don't know, to be honest. I was just meditating as my grandfather taught me, and at one point I realized that I could apply it. What nonsense. It's like I'm making excuses to a teacher at the academy right now. She won't believe it. Almost burying himself, the blonde Jinchuriki thought. Yes? Interesting. I've never heard of anyone being able to open Kekkeigenkai through meditation. The head of the Uchi said thoughtfully. I'm finished. If she doesn't believe it, she will most likely simply kill him as a suspect in espionage and stealing the secrets of the Senju clan. I'm not at the peak of my form right now, and I spent a lot of chakras during training. Damn. The words echoed in Naruto's head, forcing him to seriously strain himself and prepare to escape. Well, okay, what just does not happen in the world? Hashirama's eternal rival suddenly said nonchalantly. It worked. Kami-sama, how lucky I am. The nine-tailed bearer rejoiced inwardly, keeping an unperturbed expression on his face. So what about sparring with me, Madara-chan? With the usual optimism, the blonde asked the question. For you, Madara-sama, you fool. Attack. Confused for a moment, and then the reincarnation of Indra said with fury, she stood in a stance, thereby signaling that she was ready to attack. But suddenly, the girl attacked herself, sharply reducing the distance. She began to deliver powerful, but rather primitive blows to the body. Come on. It's too easy. Sasuke, even when we were younger, fought much more smoothly in using deceptive maneuvers. She also trained with her fellow clansmen. Didn't she really notice the shortcomings? Jinchuriki managed to think that he dodged all the blows without much effort. Without even moving from his place, Uchiha felt threatened and jumped back, breaking the distance. A slightly sadistic grin appeared on Naruto's face and he instantly appeared in front of Madara, and even with the Sharingan that instantly flared up, she did not have time to fully react. The blonde struck a direct blow to the chest, which the girl took on an incomplete block. Not bad. Your style involves fast and strong punches, but their accuracy is lame, and they are quite predictable, Naruto said and walked up to Madara and gave her a fleeting kiss on the cheek, and this is why it was unnecessary. The girl, who turned as red as a tomato, asked softly, it was your reward. And now, we have to go, Hashirama is waiting for us. The girl got up and dusted herself off and went with Naruto to Hashirama, moving a little behind and pondering the words of the blonde, and unconsciously touched her cheek with her hand, which was kissed by the guy walking in front. Hokage invited them to visit her, to celebrate acquaintance and housewarming. Half an hour later, they were standing outside Hashirama's house. Madara knocked. The door was opened to them by a guy with ash-white hair, in a blue t-shirt and black shorts, on whose face there were 3 red lines on each cheek and chin. Oh, you've come. Hello, Madara. So that's what you look like, Naruto Uzumaki. I am Tobirama Senju, Hashirama's brother, the ash-haired man said, letting the guests into the house and extending his hand to the blonde for a handshake. Naruto repeated the gesture, and after getting acquainted, all 3 went into the living room, where the table was already set. So, guys, you sit down at the table for now, and we'll go change, said Hokage, and grabbing her friend by the hand, almost teleported to the second floor. Naruto and Tobirama sat down at the table opposite each other. My sister said you were strong. How about fighting tomorrow? Ask the future, and whether the future is now, the second Hokage. Yes, I don't mind. Now, do you mind celebrating a little while the girls are busy? Meanwhile, as Hiram is with Madara, the girls almost flew into the room and closed the door. Uchiha began to pull off the armor she wore all the time. When she was done with her armor, she took off both her hoodie and black pants. Wearing a tight white t-shirt, which only emphasized her shape, and black shorts, the Sharingan wearer began to wait for her friend. Did you really like this blonde so much that you decided to seduce him? Hashirama asked in an unctuous voice, standing in her underwear trying to find something in the closet. And what if it's like that? Do you have something against it? Madara asked, blushing. Maybe. I'm just surprised. Even I couldn't stop you. I would have had to kill you if it wasn't for his intervention. And besides, since when did our constantly striving for strength kunoichi become interested in guys? Hokage spoke with uncharacteristic malice in her voice. I don't even know, probably because of his eyes. There's so much pain in them. It is clear that he went through hell and still remained himself. And he is also handsome, strong and mysterious. He's pretty cute. Maybe he'll like me and it will grow into something more. The Uchiha said dreamily. Then I won't give in to you. Senju, who was already dressed, said and smiled. She dressed up just like her friend. Going back down to the first floor, they saw two guys who were already pretty tipsy and were trying to figure out who was folding the seal faster. Having gone down to the first floor, the girls saw how the guys put the seals on the speed. And what are you doing here? Hashirama asked. Oh, Hashirama-chan, Madara-chan, you look great. And we have organized a small competition here. Stop it already, the girls said almost synchronously, exchanged glances, and sat down at the table. And I already told you. For you, I am Madara-sama. With mock anger and arrogance, the Uchiha declared. Uchiha, Tobirama said, as if that explained everything. It will be for you. Let's eat. Ida takimasu. I decided to interrupt the beginning skirmish of the Hokage.at dinner, Naruto told about himself. He decided from now on to tell only the truth, and nothing but the truth. And the fact that some details were not announced, well, is it not a lie? He did not mention names and specific dates, nor did he mention that he had previously lived in the village. He told a fascinating story of his training with Jiraiya, giving him the role of grandfather. So they sat up until 3 o'clock in the morning. Naruto was practically forced to spend the night at their house, citing the late time and his lack of housing. He woke up in the morning, from the insidious ray of the sun, which still managed to break through the curtains and beat to defeat, right in the eyes. The head of the savior of the past future was splitting with such force, as if he had taken a blow to Tsunade when she was in a rage. Having dispersed the chakra through the body, it became noticeably easier for him, although he was far from a normal state. Looking around, he noticed a small pogrom. There were sake bottles on, under, and near the table. There were so many of them that a little more and they could swim in an alcoholic drink. For the first time in many years, the blonde was attacked by a rush of cleanliness, and having created a couple of clones, there was simply not enough for him now. He, under the lamentation of his copies, began to clean up. An hour later, the process was almost completed. After all, shadow cloning is the best technique. May Tobirama not be overtaken by a hangover. When he finished, he sat down on the sofa and began to meditate in order to speed up the recovery process. Damn, how does my head hurt? It was necessary to manage to get so drunk to kill my vaunted regeneration. We also need to clean up. I'll have to use tree clones. I definitely can't do it alone, Hashirama muttered as she descended the stairs. Good morning, Hashirama-chan. Naruto spoke with a smile. The girl hung a little, watching the perfectly clean room. You're a guest and you shouldn't have cleaned up. The head of Senju began the dialogue, a little embarrassed. Don't worry, it's not difficult for me. Can you tell me where you can buy building materials? Well, I can help you with wood, but everything else will have to be taken from the warehouse. Let's do this. My clone goes to the warehouse, and you take me to the territory of the future house. Hokage agreed to be a navigator. Within half an hour they were in a clearing, quite large, quite suitable for accommodating one or even several buildings. The girl explained this by saying that the blonde was from a noble clan, and there was more than enough territory. She tried to convince Uzumaki to accept help in building a house, arguing that she could create it in 10 seconds using a Makiden, but Naruto just waved it off, and under an infinitely surprised look, he applied the element of wood himself. An impressive-looking structure rose from the ground, a frame that looked like a sample of traditional Japanese architecture. Can you use Makiden too? Hashirama asked the question, shifting her gaze, burning with almost childish delight, to Jinchuriki. Yes, I can. Warning your next question. No, I don't know how I learned. You can consider it enlightenment, or something like that. I see. The enthusiasm in the girl's eyes faded, but did not completely go away. A couple of minutes later, one of the clones returned, bringing with him several boxes of nails, and a lot of glass. Is that all? I thought you'd need more resources, Senju said in surprise. I can create everything else myself. Naruto, using shadow cloning, created about 24 copies of himself, who immediately started a stormy activity and began to decorate the house. After a couple of hours of shock construction, a pretty beautiful girl approached his harem. A beautiful, refined face. In the center of the forehead there was a pale purple rhombus of the Seal Force hundreds, aristocratically pale skin and bright scarlet hair, gathered in a pair of combs, from which sheets of fuin hung. She is dressed in a very expensive kimono with the coat of arms of the Uzumaki clan on her shoulder. Not paying any attention to the blond man and his copies unknown to her, she approached Senju, asking for help in pacifying her. Kurama's voice rang out in Naruto's head, saying that this girl is one of his past Jinchuriki and he feels like his local version will try to break out soon. Deciding that it was inappropriate to leave the girl in such an unpleasant situation, he approached and touched Mito's stomach under surprised looks. His fingers flashed with the fire of the chakra and the red-haired woman was pierced by an attack of pain, which, however, lasted only a couple of seconds. Hi, Uzumaki said in a slightly hoarse voice. I've perfected your 4-character seal, turning it into an 8-trigram seal. The blonde Kurama bearer replied. This caused the girls to fall into prostration for a good 5 minutes. But how? My seal was imposed by the head of the clan. He's a Fuinjutsu master and clearly understands more about it than some brat. The past-present Jinchuriki burst into an angry tirade. To this, Naruto just grunted and shrugged his shoulders, saying, think as you want, and returned to observing the construction site. Hashirama. Who is this? Mito was still growling. This is my friend, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto was lying quietly on the couch, resting from yesterday's drinking party in honor of his housewarming. Nothing foreshadowed trouble, but suddenly, an incredibly insidious ray of sunlight was able to break through the tightly curtained curtains. And he hit surprisingly accurately, right in the eyes of the blonde. After 5 minutes of such a bombardment, Jinchuriki's eyelids trembled, and he made a mistake that he will regret for eternity. Well, 10 minutes, exactly. Opening his eyes, he closed them just as abruptly, and with a groan fell from the location of his carcass. Finally waking up, with a heavy sigh, which contained all the sadness of the universe, he began to circulate the chakra in his body. This lasted for several minutes until the body came to a standing state. Getting up from the floor and looking around, Naruto decided to get out again. Strange, why would that be? Having created 3 of their clones, this cheerful company began cleaning, deftly maneuvering between the scattered sake bottles, which seemed to be even more than last time. After completing the procession, he dispelled the clones, sat down again on the already familiar sofa and began to meditate. Today, the second man in the house, Tobarama, was the first to wake up after the blonde. Going downstairs, he saw, a clean room is one thing, a meditating Uzumaki is one thing. Chuckling, he decided to remind him that they had agreed on a duel. Literally at the same second, mats and rumbling were heard from the stairs, and after lamenting about the injustice of the world. Judging by the voice, it was Hashirama. A couple of minutes later, Madara joined them. The girls looked slightly rumpled, but this did not detract from their beauty. The Uchiha looked especially interesting in a tight t-shirt with a shallow, but emphasizing the dignity of the kunoichi neckline. In other things, Senju was in exactly the same outfit, for which she received a look full of suspicion and condemnation from her brother. Firstly, thank you for cleaning Naruto-kun. Secondly, what are you doing? Hokage asked with the air of a great martyr, holding onto her head, which was about to split. Yes, you're welcome, it's not difficult for me. And I am busy accumulating and circulating the natural chakra to accelerate the restoration of my previous level of strength. Warning the next question, yes, I am able to use Sannin mode, the blonde man replied in an almost mentoring tone. I see. Surprisingly, everyone said in sync, so, Hashirama-chan, Madara-chan, come to me, okay. What for? Two shinobi goddesses said almost simultaneously. The head of the Uchiha still did not fully trust the guy, despite the sympathy, but the leader of Senju, on the contrary, did not see anything suspicious in the words of their guest. She still remembered how he helped her old friend, Mito, with the seal. Don't be afraid, Madara-chan, you will feel better, Naruto said, smiling broadly. And I am not afraid. It's just, you never know what you want to do with a weakened innocent girl, Madara blurted out, not immediately realizing what she said. And when the eyes of three people crossed on her and it dawned on her, she was the same color as boiled cancer. Tobarama only haughtily chuckled at this, and his sister, smiling meanly, approached the blonde and bent down, opening a good view of a couple of beautiful hills. From Uchiha it was already possible to light up, though it was unclear whether from embarrassment or anger. Placing his hand on Senju Sr.'s forehead, Jinchuriki transferred a small amount of natural chakra. Oh. I don't have a headache anymore. Thank you, Naruto-kun. In a fit of gratitude, Hashirama hugged him, hugging him to her chest. A second passed, the second, and the girl realized what it looked like and what she was doing. Jumping back, as if scalded, she blushed as much as her friend. The white-haired man, watching all this, could not resist the interworld hand-face gesture. And Madara looked at her eternal rival with a destructive and envious look. The grateful one himself began to smile even wider, although it seemed that there was nowhere else to go. End this farce. Naruto, you still owe me sparring. Have you forgotten? As always, Tobarama spoke in short but succinct phrases. No, I haven't forgotten. But don't expect much from me, I'm not even close to a normal level of strength right now. They left the house and walked towards the future 44th training ground, aka the Forest of Death. When they reached the wasteland, so far a wasteland, they parted and stood opposite each other. Hashirama gave the go-ahead and the two guys met in taijutsu. The exchange of blows dragged on and was clearly not in favor of the brother of the first. He was superior to the blonde in experience, after all, clan wars made themselves felt, but he was inferior to him in the strength of blows and fighting techniques. Deciding that he could not win a protracted battle, he switched to techniques. Suiton, water needles, Tobarama said, folding the seals. Dozens of the thinnest water shells flew into the Jinchuriki, approaching bullets unknown in this world at speed. Realizing that there is no point in defending, the attack will break through everything except Susanoo and the cover of Kurama, the spheres of the search for truth, and perhaps the walls of Gara sand, Naruto decided to attack Kato, the fiery dome, the nine-tailed bearer shouted, folding the one-handed seal, exhaling a flame that took the shape of a hemisphere. Everyone was shocked. Because fire is an element focused on the mass destruction of the enemy, and now a protective fire technique was used in front of them, which spoke of respect-inspiring knowledge and solid skill. The needles evaporated like water under the scorching desert sun, causing no damage. Chuckling annoyingly, Tobirama decided to check how strong this shell of fire is, the breath of the water dragon. A fairly wide jet of water under gigantic pressure rushed to Uzumaki's defense. Sensing danger, he dispelled his defenses and decided to simply evade. Raiden, twinkle, a small flash, and Naruto simply disappeared from the enemy's field of view. Immediately stopping the attack, Senju began to look around, looking for his opponent with his eyes. Suddenly, the white-haired shinobi felt a threat to his life and wind currents from above. Futon, Rasen Shuriken, a white projectile in outline really resembling a shuriken, was rapidly approaching. Hiration. Using his crown technique, Tobirama moved several hundred meters. The technique landed where Hashirama's brother was standing just a second ago. The activation of the technique was accompanied by a humming low sound in a dome of light, measuring a good 30 meters, a little more, and what would have happened to him, the white-haired man did not know, but clearly nothing good. Suddenly, something cold touched his throat. Looking down, he saw a kunai of a strange shape, similar to a trident. I won, Tobirama-san. Naruto calmly stated the fact, still holding the blade at his throat. I give up. He raised his hands in a gesture of surrender to Senju. Hashirama and Madara were silently watching this scene. This fight was short, but, to put it mildly, impressive. When these two went smiling towards the girls, Uchiha gathered the determination to approach Uzumaki. She wanted to learn the defensive techniques of fire, because it is not always possible to dodge, but to use Susanoo for every strong technique and you can go blind. Oddly enough, the blonde agreed, but patting the girl on the head and referring to fatigue, he trudged towards his house, leaving the confused Madara and enviously looking after him Senju behind. Leaving his new friends, Uzumaki calmly walked in the direction of his house. He had nowhere to hurry, and there was no strength left to move along the upper paths. So, he walked, enjoying the beauties of nature and the not yet overgrown Konoha. And what's there? I just wanted to walk. But nothing lasts forever, and that's how Kurama's silence ended. Well, how do you like the second in sparring? Asked the fox. The blonde himself hesitated with an answer, giving himself to the analysis of the fight. Too short. He obviously didn't show most of his arsenal, however, neither did I, but I still have to crawl and crawl to the last level of strength. Listen, flee, and if you start accumulating and circulating your and the natural chakra? It's supposed to speed up the recovery process. Naruto answered the question and gave himself up to thinking. I'm not a flea, the nine-tailed man growled at the top of his lungs. Yes, of course. Well, what about my question? In principle, I would not advise you to use the hermit mode as in the battle with Tobirama. You may have a lot in common, but not enough chakra by your standards. But, you can try. I will try to strengthen the regenerative effect of my chakra. Kurama was already calmly broadcasting. I see. Hey, Kurama, what do you think about the girls? The blonde man casually decided to ask. PF. They both took control of me, well, or my local version. One Uchiha, and that says it all. And the second one is as cheerful a fool as you were in the past. May they both hiccup. The fox commented on this. At this moment, both girls simultaneously hiccuped. Well, they just kind of like me. Naruto said thoughtfully. I found a reason for joy. They are higher than their clans and act in the interests of these same clans. The red-eyed ones could use the genes of a strong Uzumaki, even if not a purebred one, because you are famous for your endurance, and this will have a positive effect on the offspring. They will be able to maintain their eyes longer and all that. And Senju's relationship with you will only strengthen the alliance between Konoha and Uzushio. After all, how? The first Hokage and Uzumaki. For as you have already noticed, Mito, the current Haim of the red-haired was born a girl, not a guy. Even though they need such bonds, they will not go to a marriage between them. Morals are not the same. Gave a whole tirade to Biju, yeah. Politics again. Even here, in the past Uzumaki was not so happy anymore, ha. What did you want? Peace, friendship, ramen? You don't seem to be a naive child, Naruto. You should understand that people always act in order to benefit. For yourself, or the clan, it's not the essence of it. With a bitter smile, his tailed one said, yes, I know. Simply. I'm tired, Kurama. I'm tired of everything. From looks full of hatred, from attempts to prove to the inhabitants of my native village that I am not a monster, but a simple person, from endless training in pursuit of power to bring Sasuke back, despite his reputation as a nuke-nin, from the constant hunting of Akatsuki who wanted to extract you, and after all the same training, to learn how to control your power, at a time when hundreds and thousands of people died for me. The world is cruel, I understand it like no one else, but this does not mean that I accept it like this, Jinchuriki said, and you keep hoping for the best, kid, the fox said without hiding his malice. I will change this world. Once, I've already lost everything. I will not allow a second time, the blonde man exclaimed. Okay, our lover of the world, we have already come, Kurama answered him, grinning, having opened the door to his new, in every sense, home. Naruto decided to prepare his defense. Of course, he does not have a set to create a protective Fuin complex, which were installed in Uzushio. He can create a chakra-conducting paper at the expense of Mokutan, and his blood will completely replace special ink, but it will not be enough for something more than general strengthening and protection from outsiders. Work again. 10 more days have passed since the sparring with Tobirama. Naruto has been in Konoha for 2 weeks in total. During this time, he almost completely recovered and was able to teach Madara that protective fire technique. With what admiring eyes she looked at him when she succeeded, words cannot convey. She wanted to repeat the gratitude technique that Hashirama once used, but Uzumaki stoically, albeit not without sadness, was forced to reject such a generous offer, for which he earned a look full of sadness. He also wanted to get the girl's attention, but he would not use such, one might say, base methods when you are loved out of gratitude. Never. Just at the end of the second week, he decided to upgrade the Fuin protection to a full-fledged complex, and one that only a rampaging ten-tailed will break through. As one wise man said, my house is my fortress. Under the surprised and questioning looks of his new friends, when he asked for 10 liters of ink for Fuin, he began to explain his idea. There was even more suspicion when he casually dropped, this won't even break through a bijou. The first, albeit a little squinting at the blonde, but gave out the cherished ink. The already recovered Naruto could create a chakra-protective paper using the already proven technique with the help of a Mokuton. And the process started. For a whole day, he and 36 of his clones, without interruptions, drew separate blocks, which were then supposed to be connected into a complex. All this design included the following functions: strengthening, self-healing, climate control, creation of the purest water, creation, filtration and air circulation, self-purification, built-in access system of the friend-foe type, alert system for the presence of living entities near the barrier, spatial expansion in each of the 3 rooms, for super-accumulators of chakra by type, honey. The chakra, due to which the effect of accelerated recovery will be achieved at least 3 times. The elemental chakra, to repel attacks on the principle of the Yada Itachi mirror, the usual chakra to recharge the entire complex, the most capacious, the natural chakra, so that Naruto himself could be constantly in hermit mode in cases of an attack, but only within a radius of 100 meters from the house. There are not enough transmitting seals based on the method of reverse summoning, only between himself and the accumulator. When he finished this whole array, he made it disappear into the Makoto chakra-productive tree, and shouting, "I did it," the blonde passed out where he was standing. After sleeping for 12 hours, he finally woke up. Obviously, after such work, he would have slept for several days, but he still managed to start the whole mechanism, and the Fuin accumulator honey, the chakras were doing their job. Kicking himself for being careless in every way, he was still able to get up and hobble towards the kitchen, because not that there was, but he wanted to eat incredibly. After quickly frying the meat and cooking the noodles, he began to devour the viand simply in exorbitant quantities. After emptying a 2-week supply of food, he received an alert from the detection system. When he got out of the house, he saw just a wonderful company, Hashirama in hermit mode pounding the barrier with Madara, who even used Amaterasu, the remnants of which burned the ground in front of the dome, and trying to find a gap in the weave of Fuin Tobaram. When they saw the culprit of their efforts, they began to shout and wave their hands. However, because of the isolation, the sound could not be heard. Sighing heavily, anticipating the upcoming scolding, he trudged to the exit of the barrier where you were minting every word and emitting yaki. Madara asked him, at home, as if not noticing Uchiha's efforts to intimidate. Uzumaki replied, "Why didn't you warn us?" The first one asked him with some resentment, "Should I?" The blonde man arched an eyebrow questioningly, copying Sasuke's usual gesture. Indra's reincarnation's eye twitched. "Yes. That is, no. That is, he should have." Torn between the desire not to show true feelings, anger and embarrassment, said Haim Krasnoglazik, "I kind of said that I would install a set of Fuin seals. If they didn't hear me, it's not my fault," Naruto said with a noticeable coolness in his voice. This cooled the girl's ardor in causing good and inflicting justice. While Jinchuriki and her friend were trying to burn each other with glances, Hashirama just came up and hugged the culprit of the event. "I was worried, Naruto-kun," and here everyone was already surprised. Usually flighty and cheerful Senju painfully resembled a shy and modest Hinata. Naruto, confused by this, still hugged the girl in response, for which he received from Tobarama, who had been silently watching the procession, a destroying look, promising all the punishments of heaven if the blonde hurt his sister. "I'm sorry," Naruto replied in a hoarse voice, pulling away slightly. The first one looked into his eyes and reached out and kissed him. Madara's second eye twitched and she released a second wave of yaki. The second frowned even more. "You are unbearable, Uzumaki." Uchiha shouted and turned around and quickly left by the upper ways. Before that, her eyes shone suspiciously. "What kind of barrier did you set up?" The white-haired man spoke up. "Fuin Complex, Citadel of Eternity." The blonde man answered him, stopping the prolonged kiss with Hashirama, who blushed from embarrassment. "I've never heard of such a thing." Tobarama continued thoughtfully. "Everyone has their own secrets. Tobarama-san, can we count on you to establish the same protection for the whole of Konoha?" "No," the blonde man categorically rejected the offer. "If it's a question of money, then," the brother of the first began, but was interrupted by Jinchuriki. "No, it's a matter of strength and trust. Even I had to spend a whole day, with 3 dozen of my clones, installing all these seals and spending all 10 liters of ink. And I didn't even count how much chakra protective paper I spent. And even though Konoha has become my home, but this technique is only for my family. Can you install it in our house?" Tobarama asked another question. "I'll think about it." Naruto answered him vaguely. "Okay, we'll go." "We're leaving." Hashirama, pinning down his sister with a heavy look, the white-haired man said, "I'll be waiting, Naruto-kun." And quickly kissing Uzumaki on the cheek, she was teleported by her brother's flying thunder god. Interlude, Madara Uchiha. The girl was rushing along the upper paths without noticing anything around. Her eyes glistened with tears in the light of the setting sun. There was a lump in her throat and she just wanted to howl with resentment, and, as luck would have it, the scene of her rival friend's kiss constantly replayed in her head with this. By this. This. Why does this scene hurt so much? Since when did she, the goddess of Shinobi, the head of the Uchiha clan, start worrying about guys? She's never had that before. And why waste time on some kind of relationship when she needs to deal with the affairs of the clan or train, so as not to die in the next skirmish? But it didn't lighten the burden on my heart a bit. This one. He burst into her life unexpectedly, just over 2 weeks ago, when he and Hashirama were close to killing each other. And after that, everything became only more confusing. This is his manner of address. No one addressed her like that except Izuna and Hashirama. But her brother is dead, and with Senju they are almost blood enemies. Or friends. Arg. How infuriating. And it is also training in the protective technique of fire. Calm intonation, soft voice and polite correction of mistakes. And most importantly, he wasn't afraid of her. I was not sensibly afraid, I did not tremble with horror, I did not consider it as a target for elimination. No. He saw her as a girl. A young, inexperienced in terms of ordinary life, even a little naive girl. This made it warm somewhere inside, and Kato's technique had nothing to do with it. Next to him, I stopped being the Snow Queen of Uchi and was just myself. And again that scene. But what is it? We've only known each other for 2 weeks, and I'm grieving for him, as for a member of the clan, whom I've known since childhood. Do I really need that little rave? I'm not a vulnerable little girl. I am Madara Uchiha. Yes. And I will achieve my goal. Hashirama will strangle himself with envy when he becomes mine. The end of the interlude, Naruto was still standing looking at the place of teleportation of the two Senju. Unconsciously, he touched his lips with his hand, and at the same moment, goosebumps ran down his back from a premonition of something bad. Ha ha ha. How does she like you, huh? Ida Hashirama. I, the bitch's daughter. With a simple kiss, she made the strongest shinobi of her time freeze like an idol. This is worthy of respect. Ha ha ha. Neighed like Kurama's horse. Fuck you, Fleabag, the blonde man gave out almost without emotion. Hey! Why are you so sad? We should be happy. Hashirama Senju hangs himself on you, and you look sourer than Shikaku when you remind him about tails, ha ha ha. The fox didn't stop, family, Kurama. I didn't immediately understand what exactly I said. I never had a family. A real family. And now I don't even know what to think. On the one hand, I clearly got attached to the girls, on the other hand, I know almost nothing about them. Part of their biography from the past world? So everything can be different here, although it has similar moments. How long have we spent together? A week? 2? How much? And they still like me, despite the fact that they know even less about me than I do about them, Uzumaki thought melancholically. Hey! And don't you care? They like you, you like them, so be together. As one person I met said, I see the goal, I see no obstacles. Biju expressed a surprisingly good idea, you're probably right. Naruto said much more confidently, pfft. I'm always right. Said the nine-tailed and interrupted communication. After standing a little longer, the blonde decided to walk to the very lake that was supposed to become the Valley of Completion. Moving along the upper paths, he got to the right place in a couple of hours. The wounds left by the two kunoichi have already begun to heal. Apparently, the role of the Mokuton chakra, abundantly sprayed literally everywhere, played a role. The moon was reflected in the absolutely smooth, almost mirror-like surface of the lake, which was preserved despite the waterfall. Sitting down on the shore, Jinchuriki just enjoyed the view, which reminded him of something, but he could not remember. Beautiful, Uzumaki said thoughtfully, and so several hours passed, right up to dawn. Well, it's time to go home. Naruto's voice rang out in the morning silence. By the way, Tobirama, would you like to take a nickname for yourself? Nickname, they are usually given for distinction in the war. Well, you're partly right here, but they can also be given for abilities. Here you can have a nickname, for example, Water God, or Mizu, something like that. I need to think. By the way, can you explain the technique of the water net? Of course, the technique of the water network is protective and has three variations: fire, water and air. The technique has two uses. The first is to intercept the attack and suck out the chakra, and the second is to intercept the technique and redirect it somewhere. Tobirama sat for 5 minutes, stacking all the information received on the shelves, created about a dozen shadow clones. 3 hours later, Madara came out of the house and such a picture appeared before her. 11 Tobirama are training some kind of water technique, and Naruto is sleeping under a tree in an embrace with a fox and a blue cat. POV Matatabi, did someone print me out? Although what I'm happy about, they'll seal me up again and try to subdue me. You stupid Matatabi, you probably fell asleep in the most inappropriate place again. Said the voice. What? Who is he and how does he know my name? He knows the names of all the tailed ones and has a piece of everyone's chakra. Said the fox. Kurama, no wait, you're not really from this world, explain yourself. Kurama told Matatabi everything, if he told anything along the way. The two-tailed one was surprised and wanted to say something, but the fox said that they could go out and they both appeared near the sleeping blonde. He'll protect you, don't worry. Said Kurama and lay down next to the blonde. At first, she was afraid to do anything, but still decided to also lie down next to the blonde, and POV Matatabi. Hey Tobirama, he finally started to train you in techniques. Madara said and went up to Naruto and sat down next to him, put his head on his knees. I didn't know you were in such a relationship. Tobirama said, looking at Uchiha with surprise. Not just me, Hashirama and Mito are also his girlfriends. What? I didn't think he would choose the three of you at once. By the way, where did this cat come from? I don't know. Wait, did he like us? Damn, Tobirama can't tell you anything in secret. As for the cat, this is Matatabi Two-Tailed Biju, a new resident of Konoha. Naruto said without opening his eyes. And where did it come from? Asked Tobirama. Well, at night Shiza told me that she was sealed and was coming here. Well, then think for yourself. By the way, I invite you to my place today. Tobirama just smiled and left to train. Madara began stroking the blonde's hair, which slightly surprised the blonde. Machan, you want me to show you a little trick? The girl nodded. Naruto cut his palms and 10 seconds later a small ball of blood hung in the air, and 5 seconds later a pendant in the form of a flame fell into Naruto's hands. He put it on the girl's neck, which made her turn red like a tomato. The blonde man smiled and created 2 more pendants, one in the form of a tree, and the second in the form of a fox's muzzle. An hour later, Hashirama came out of the house and saw Naruto lying on Madara's lap, immediately turned up next to them and began to release a killer ki. Madara, you are violating the agreement. Senju said, but seeing the blonde's gesture, she sat down next to him. Naruto sat up and put on her pendant in the form of a tree. It wasn't worth the expense. He didn't spend, he just created it from his blood. You should have seen how fascinating it is. Don't worry Hachan, and now I suggest you go get Mito and go for a walk around the village, and then come to my place for dinner. The girls nodded. the three of them got to their feet and said goodbye to Tobirama and followed Mito. Half an hour later they were already standing outside her house and Naruto knocked on the door. The door opened and the trio saw a sleepy Mito in one t-shirt, which was pulled down, because of which the girl's underwear appeared to everyone. The red-haired woman looked at the guests and, after looking down for a couple of seconds, remembered in what form she was and abruptly closed the door. Black means, but it suits her, thought Naruto. 10 minutes later, the door opened again and Mito came out of the house. What are you doing so early? The red-haired woman asked in slight embarrassment. Mi-chan, we're calling you for a walk, Naruto said, holding out his hand. Mi-chan, we're calling you for a walk, Naruto said, holding out his hand. Then I suggest we go to a cafe at the beginning, Mito said after she closed the door and, taking the blonde's hand, went down from the threshold. Then let's go, and by the way, Mi-chan, wait a couple of seconds, said the blonde and put on her a pendant in the form of a fox face. The red-haired woman looked at the pendant, and then at her friends, and when she saw that they had almost the same pendants, she realized that she could not get away from the gift. Half an hour later they were sitting in a small cafe that had recently opened. A waitress came up to them and when she saw who she was going to serve, she immediately caught the last stage of stress. Mito ordered a portion of curry, Madara and Hashirama ordered a portion of salad, and Naruto ordered tea. That's right, I keep forgetting to ask, Hachan, you are near us almost all the time, then how do you manage the village? Naruto asked and took a sip of tea. I just created a tree clone that deals with the affairs of the Hokage. He comes at night and gives me all the necessary information, something like that. Hashirama replied. After eating and paying for the food, they left the cafe, and Naruto offered to go to a beautiful place that was not far from the village. 20 minutes later they found themselves in front of a forest lake, which turned all ideas of beauty upside down. The lake was about 40 meters by 45. The opposite bank was hidden under the roots of ancient trees, and low reeds grew around the perimeter. The sun reflected off the water and illuminated the entire area around the lake. Such a place could be found elsewhere, but for some reason it was here that this view was fascinating, beautiful. The girls said in chorus, in this place, the natural chakra is more concentrated and dense, so most likely because of this, this place seems more beautiful, Naruto explained and went out to the center of the lake, although we went for a walk, but I suggest we do a little training, the blonde man said and sat down in the lotus position on the water. And what should we do? Madara asked, sit in a meditation pose and try to feel the natural chakra first. Hachan will be the easiest since she can enter hermit mode, Naruto said, and after his words, the girl sat down next to him. Wait, if she can enter this mode, it doesn't mean that she can already feel it? Asked Uchiha looking at the blonde. No, even though I can enter the mode, but it happens automatically, that is, I want to enter the mode, and the body already does everything by itself, something like that. Hashirama replied to her friend. So what should we do? Mito asked Naruto. You need to concentrate on the nature around you and try to become one with it. These are all understandable explanations that I can provide you with. So they sat until the sun began to set, and if the girls tried to feel something, then Naruto was playing with the tailed ones in his subconscious. After training, the girls went to their homes to preen up before going to the blonde in the evening, and Naruto himself went to his place to cook dinner for 5. So, I think the main dish will be curry. You can also chop a couple of salads. We need to check the stocks. Damn, the berries are running out, Naruto said out loud looking at the pale tomo that was drawn on the scroll in the mug. The blonde created a shadow clone and sent him on a search, and he began to peel vegetables. 2 hours later, dinner was ready and standing on the table, the clone returned, and to the surprise of the blonde brought a couple of kilograms of blackberries. The blonde sent the clone back, but already behind the bushes, to plant it on his plot. 10 minutes later the girls came. Wash your hands and sit down at the table, said Naruto and looked out into the hallway from the kitchen. Where's Tobirama? The blonde man asked, looking at the guests. He said that he would come in 10 minutes, as he needed to finish the technique. Hashirama replied, taking off her shoes. Well, while he's gone, I suggest that each of you spend the day one-on-one, starting after tomorrow. Choose the order yourself," said the blonde man, entering the living room, where the girls were already sitting. "Why not tomorrow?" asked Madara. Well, as it happened, we'll get drunk and tomorrow there will be a withdrawal, so I also have scheduled chores tomorrow. "Well, what kind of household duties does the strongest in the village have?" asked Tobirama, who had just entered the house and heard Naruto's last phrase. "Well, first of all it's resupply, secondly, my clone found bushes with berries and I would like to transplant them, thirdly, I would like to do a hobby." Again your military habits, but I like them," Tobirama said as he sat down at the table. The girls looked at the guys with a surprised look. "Oh, right, I didn't say Tobirama knows about my past." This evening, the drinking party was repeated again, which always took place according to the same scenario. The feast stops only when the last participant falls into drunken unconsciousness. Naruto woke up on the couch. It was already 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Taking a sitting position and twisting his face, the blonde man began to look around, barely concentrating his gaze on the table. He saw a note on the table and with difficulty getting up, the blonde began to read. "We got up early and cleaned up the mess." Naruto smiled and took a nearby glass, drank its contents. The headache and defocusing went away almost immediately, quickly bringing himself into human form. Naruto left the house. To his surprise, Tobirama was sitting on the threshold, and as soon as he heard the sound of the door opening, he turned in the direction of the blonde. "Why are you sitting here, Tobirama? You definitely can't drink, the memory is completely off. You asked me to help you with chores." Yes, wait, it's interesting to you since you agreed to help. Well, I wonder what a seasoned soldier is stocking up on. Okay, let's go, we'll be wandering around the forest almost all day. After these words, Tobirama got up and walked next to the blonde. An hour later they found themselves in a clearing where blackberry bushes grew. Naruto created a couple of clones that immediately began to dig out bushes with their bare hands. Tobirama tried to offer to use such a wonderful tool as a shovel, to which he received the answer that it was more convenient, saying that the clones would cope. The blonde man went further into the forest, and the ash-haired one followed him. "And what are we looking for?" asked Tobirama. Any medicinal components, as well as the most chakra-conducted materials. "Well, as for the components for medicines, I understand why they are needed, but not so much about the materials. I'm going to make a room in the house that will be a chakra storage." Is this possible? Yes, of course, and don't be so surprised. After a couple of hours, they went out to another clearing where a couple of types of medicinal herbs grew. Tobirama said that he did not know how to collect herbs, to which the blonde only smiled and began to tell how to properly collect herbs. In general, you take the plant by the base and twist it a little bit, but do not do it with force, otherwise the root will remain in the ground. Well, why are you looking at me like that? And what if there is no medic or someone who understands herbs nearby? Let's sit down and start training. Tobirama, after thinking over the words of the blonde, sat down next to him and tried to do as Naruto said. Senju understood that Naruto was right, and if a war broke out, any skills would increase your chances of survival. They walked through the forest until the sun began to set. When they got home, the guys sat down at the table in the living room and the blonde printed out all the resources found. "So, as I understand it, you decided to learn more of my military wisdom?" asked Naruto. Tobirama replied and began to inspect everything they had collected. "So let's start. We have collected 5 types of medicinal plants. These are mint, aloe, thistle, chamomile and St. John's wort. Mint and chamomile act as a sedative and are usually dried and used as an addition to tea. Aloe is added to ointments for bruises and cuts. Thistle and St. John's wort are weeds, but this does not make them less useful. They are dried and adding a couple more ingredients, they are prepared from them. Chakra restoration pills, understand? How many useful plants and their combinations are there in total?" asked Tobirama, trying to remember everything he said. "Plants, about 1,500, and their combinations are a little more than 5,000. Said Naruto and broke into a smile seeing the despair on the face of his friend and student. And you remember all this? I'm even afraid to ask what else you can do. I not only remember all this, but also took this knowledge into practice. Okay, let's continue. We also found a couple of the most chakra-conducting trees. Said Naruto and pointed to an armful of logs and brushwood, and since we are lucky, we now have 2 sprouts of these trees, but so far this is not the point. Logs will go to me for construction, and branches and sawdust will go to chakra-conductive paper for seals. Now about the sprouts, you can grow them on your territory and replenish the chakra near him faster, and by the way, you can take one. And how to restore the chakra near him? Tobirama asked, taking the sprout in his hands. Since it is a conducting chakra, it is much easier to absorb the chakra that this tree accumulates from it, but you have to be careful with this, since you can kill the tree. And besides this method, are there others? Yes, there are places around the world where the natural chakra is the most concentrated, and there you can train in mastering the hermit mode without summoning, but also there you can transform the natural chakra into an ordinary one with the help of seals. I see, but why did you take these boulders? Tobirama asked, pointing to 4 boulders. To my surprise, these are pieces of iron ore, so also of the highest quality. They most likely fell out of the wagon train that came 2 months ago. So what are you going to do with them? I'll make a weapon. What else? Well, all that remains is to scatter everything in its places, and I went shopping. Naruto gave part of the loot to Tobirama and saying goodbye to him, opened the scroll and sealed everything in it, except for plants. Taking the money, Naruto went to a small shop that was kept by a man in his 50s. Hello Kashi-san, I'm here to shop for you. Said the blonde man entering a small building. Hello Naruto-sama, are you as usual? The old man behind the counter asked. Yes, and add a couple more cases of sake. Accepted by Naruto-sama, and I also wanted to thank you for your advice about the garden. Now I have twice as much harvest, and all thanks to you. You're welcome. That I know you're going to yell at me again, but I brought you another present. Said the blonde and printed out a small bush of blackberries. Well, if that's the case, I'll accept it, but this is the last time. Said Kashi and went into the back room. 20 minutes later, Kashi returned and took out Naruto's order, namely, 15 kilograms of vegetables, 5 kilograms of rice, 10 kilograms of meat, 20 large fish, 5 dozen eggs, various spices, herbs, and finally 2 boxes of sake. The blonde man put a stack of bills on the counter, sealed the products and said goodbye to the seller. Left the building. On the way home, Naruto met the girls who were looking for him. They said that Madara would be the first, Mito the second, Hashirama the third. The blonde nodded and said goodbye to the girls and went on home. When he got home, he quickly distributed the products to the places and decided that it was better to rest today. The blonde went to bed, simultaneously thinking how to make their day unforgettable for the girls. Naruto woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning, having quickly done all the morning procedures. He began to prepare breakfast along the way, thinking how best to spend the day. So, I need to dress up. I think that outfit will do. Having prepared himself a light salad, he quickly ate it and flew into his room like a bullet, began to change clothes. Naruto put on a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves, black shorts below the knee and standard shinobi sandals. The blonde created a clone and printed out the ore. You know what to do, you'll take everything else in the room. Gave instructions to the Naruto clone and left the house. Arriving at the house where the gods lived, the blonde knocked on the door. After a little fumbling behind the door, Madara came out on the threshold. She was wearing a red sleeveless cape, like Sakura in Boruto, and black, tight shorts, shinobi sandals on her feet. You look great, Naruto said and held out his hand to Madara. You too. Madara said with a smile and holding the hand of the blonde, went down to him on the ground. I suggest to start walking around the village. Come on. Taking each other by the arms, the couple went for a walk around the village. They walked through the streets of the village, which was getting bigger and bigger every day. The couple walked through the newly opened shops, through the park that also appeared not long ago. Naruto told stories from his life, and Madara laughed and sometimes also told something, and no persuasion worked on him. But I received information that he likes tomatoes to the point of frenzy, and here I am, standing in front of him, and asking him to get the scrolls. He just wanted to send me again, but I put a box of tomatoes in front of him. He grabs the box in a moment and shouting that the order will be delivered in the evening, ran away in an unknown direction. Yes, I did not expect that the last of the Uchi would fulfill orders for tomatoes. He was lucky that no one knew about it except a couple of people, otherwise he would only work for tomatoes. Oh, sweet shop, shall we go in? Taking each other by the arms, the couple went for a walk around the village. They walked through the streets of the village, which was getting bigger and bigger every day. The couple walked through the newly opened shops, through the park that also appeared not long ago. Naruto told stories from his life, and Madara laughed and sometimes also told something, and no persuasion worked on him. But I received information that he likes tomatoes to the point of frenzy, and here I am, standing in front of him, and asking him to get the scrolls. He just wanted to send me again, but I put a box of tomatoes in front of him. He grabs the box in a moment and shouting that the order will be delivered in the evening, ran away in an unknown direction. Yes, I did not expect that the last of the Uchi would fulfill orders for tomatoes. He was lucky that no one knew about it except a couple of people, otherwise he would only work for tomatoes. Oh, sweet shop, shall we go in? Yes, come on. Naruto opened the door and let Madara go ahead, and as soon as he was inside, a mixture of smells of various sweets hit him in the nose. The girl's eyes immediately filled with universal joy, and now it was read in them that if she did not buy sweets, even Naruto would not survive. What she would do. The blonde only sighed, thereby saying, "Take what you want, I'll pay." Because of which the girl's eyes increased again and she began to run around the store at the speed of a bullet, and Naruto only wondered how in general the eyes can increase so much. 40 minutes later, when the floor of the store was bought up, and the blonde's purse was empty for 40,000 ri, the blonde invited the girl to a cafe. After a quick snack, the couple went for a walk, and they walked until Naruto felt that the clone had dissipated. "Machan, do you want me to show you a beautiful place?" the blonde man asked. Well, then be patient a little bit," said Naruto, and picking up the girl in his arms, rushed somewhere from the village. 20 minutes later they were standing by a lake with a waterfall. The girl immediately recognized this place. It was here that she fought with Hashirama. "Have you decided to make fun of me?" Madara asked with a note of sadness in her voice. "Fool, that I understand that you're still sorry about what you did, but we're here so that you can forgive yourself and admire the views," said Naruto, and taking the girl by the hand led her to the waterfall. Sitting on a rock right in front of the cliff, they saw another beautiful view, an endless forest divided by a river and with mountains on the horizon. Why did you fall in love with a monster like me?" Madara asked, sitting in front of the blonde in his arms. "And in what place are you a monster?" Naruto asked, burying his face in her hair. "I was ready to leave the village because of the reason I invented, and then destroy it, and if it wasn't for you, I would have killed my friend, and then the fox would have printed out killing the second friend." Laughter. "Is that the only reason you think you're a monster? Everyone can fall into darkness and everyone has a chance for correction. Just ask for forgiveness. I'm sure they've already forgiven you." It's easy for you to say, you've never fallen into darkness. Damn technique, it can't show memories normally. Well, to hell with it. You want to hear my story about how I fell into darkness? There was only silence in response. Well, I'll take it for consent. Since childhood, I have wanted the recognition of the inhabitants. I wanted them to see me as a defender, not a demon. For the sake of my dream, I trained like hell, and after the academy I entered the Umbu, and a year later I became a captain. Then the war started, and one day I was given a mission to destroy the enemy camp, but there was one thing. I had to kill everyone, both enemies and hostages, among whom were my friends. I tried to refuse, but they convinced me that it was necessary for the good of the village, and I was a fool. Without hesitating for a second, I killed everyone, but they began to look at me with even greater contempt, and then I also found out that it was something like an exam for me. They say, will I be able to carry out orders unquestioningly as a weapon of the village? I also completely wiped out 3 hidden villages, Grass, Star and Sound, and when I say completely, I mean that I killed everyone, residents, shinobi, children and the elderly. All the buildings were burned to the ground, not even ashes remained, somehow so. Naruto told his story and again buried himself in the girl's hair. Her hair smells like caramel, the blonde man thought. And how did you come back from the darkness? Madara asked, sobbing slightly. When I once again crossed the threshold of death, I saw those whom I killed, my friends who fell by my hand. That I sat down next to them and, barely holding back tears, asked for forgiveness. Surprisingly, they forgave me and said they understood me. I sat with them for about 10 minutes, and then they told me, it's time for you to go back. And then I fell into unconsciousness and woke up in the hospital. Well, why did you cry then? Well, I wanted to make an unforgettable, joyful day, and you're sitting and crying. I'm sorry for you, Madara said, almost sobbing. Naruto simply hugged her even harder. After a couple of hours, the sun began to set and every minute the forest in front of them became more and more beautiful. Have you calmed down? The blonde activated the seal on the stone and a katana in a black sheath appeared in his hands. The handle was also black, but it still had red diamonds on it, and the same pendant was attached to the end of the handle as Madara's neck. Surprisingly, this katana had no guard. The blade was red and gave off heat. This is for you, a little gift for the end of the first date. I understand that you like the scythe more, but if you activate the seal on the handle, the sword will turn into a Kusarigama, and if you hold a chakra into it, it will turn into fire. Your name and surname are also carved on the blade, as well as the coat of arms of the Uchiha clan, and, I forgot to mention, in the future, after fulfilling the conditions, the katana will change a little, but you will find out about it yourself, said the blonde man holding a katana in his hands in front of the girl. Is this really for me? Asked the surprised Madara, and taking the sword in her hands. Of course that I made it especially for you. By the way, here's another scroll describing his abilities, and now come on, I'll walk you out, said Naruto, and picking up the girl in his arms went to the village. A couple came when it was already dark. Putting the girl on the ground, they said goodbye and Naruto was about to leave when suddenly Madara kisses him and disappears behind the door. The blonde just smiled and went home. Getting up so early again, but there's nothing to be done, Naruto muttered and took a sitting position. Going into the bathroom and quickly doing all the morning procedures, the blonde went down to the first floor, and coming to the kitchen, he began to prepare breakfast for himself. Having cooked himself a light salad, which he ate every morning, the blonde sat down with a plate at the table. So, what can I think of? Most likely, Mito will not want to walk around the village, since she has been sitting in it almost all her life, which means that you need to remember some beautiful place outside the village. Also, we finally need to come up with a gift for her. What can we give Uzumaki? Uzumaki's girlfriend, Naruto mused to himself. Maybe that lake with whirlpools is suitable for your date. A voice rang out in the blonde man's head. Shiza, do you want me to make the girl cry again? Naruto asked his red-haired schizophrenia. You yourself wanted to help all 3 get rid of emotional experiences, but how to get rid of them without shedding tears? Kurama asked a rhetorical question. Yes, you're right. By the way, can you also help with a gift? It seems to be smart, but you can't analyze simple things. Look here, you've known her for almost 5 months and you've been training her for the same amount, and you should have already understood that she doesn't want to disgrace the name of her clan and become worthy of harem, and now remember that you have one of the lost techniques that you don't use, and you can pass it on. The fox expressed his thoughts. I'm not sure she'll like the consequences of the technique, but okay, I'll look at the circumstances, said Naruto, and removing the empty plate, went to get dressed. After getting dressed and putting his hair in order, Naruto left the house and followed Mito. 20 minutes later, the blonde came to the girl's house, and to his surprise she was sleeping leaning on a tree. Approaching her, Naruto saw that the girl was wearing a red sleeveless turtleneck, black, tight shorts, and standard shinobi sandals on her feet. He could just sit down next to her and watch her sleeping all day, but a first date is a first date. Wake up, sleeping beauty, or you'll oversleep the whole date, Naruto whispered in the girl's ear, then kissed her on the cheek. It's you, Nakuen, and I just dozed off a little, stretching, said the girl. The blonde gave her a hand to help her get up. The girl with a smile on her face got up from the ground and grabbed the guy by the arm. Where are we going to, Nakuen? I think you're tired of sitting in Konoha, so I suggest you go to a beautiful place outside the village. But I can't leave the village, I'm a Jinchuriki. You're going to be with me, so it's okay. Now, without finishing, the blonde picked up the girl in his arms and went in an unknown direction to her. The couple was walking through the woods. Well, as she walked, the guy was carrying the girl in his arms. Along the way, Naruto told various stories that happened in his life, and the girl listened with fascination and was surprised, because it's not every day you hear a man eat a live squid on a bet. 6 hours later, the couple came to a large lake with a small island in the center, and, oddly enough, there was another lake on the island. All this beauty was a couple of 100 meters from the cliff and the beginning of the mountain range. Well, here we are, and we still have 10 minutes left, Naruto said, looking at the sun that was almost at the horizon. What's going to happen in 10 minutes? Mito asked with a little excitement, because after the stories from this man, she expected anything from him. It's a secret, but I'm sure you'll like it. And now let's take a place by the shore and admire the view, the blonde man said, and went to the shore, still carrying the girl in his arms. Sitting on the shore so that the setting sun was on the left side, the couple began to look at the water. For 10 minutes. The blonde did not say a word. Mito was about to say something, but she was distracted by a slight movement of the water. It's starting, Naruto whispered, and the water began to turn yellow. After half a minute, the water turned the color of gold. Whirlpools also swirled in the lake, and after another half a minute, the whirlpools raged in full, as if the lake was filled with molten gold, and then twisted into whirlpools. It looks fascinating, Mito said, looking at what was happening on the water surface. That's not all, now it will be even more beautiful, Naruto said. And after his words, the whirlpools began to move, not just began to twist more strongly, but began to drift along the surface of the water. As the sun set, the water changed its color a couple more times, from gold to white, from white to red. All this action lasted about 15 minutes until the sun went down. Did you like it? Naruto asked in a whisper. Yes. Mito also answered in a whisper. In this response, one could read admiration and surprise, but one could also read sadness. Mito, tell me, do you miss Uzushi-Ogakura? The blonde man asked another question from the part. Since I am the harem of the clan, I didn't have any friends as such until I moved to Konoha, and of my relatives, only my father remained, who is constantly busy with clan affairs, and I am no longer at that age. Also due to the fact that the heiress in me was sealed by a fox. But no matter what, I still miss Uzushi-Ogakura, and I want to become a worthy head of the clan, or at least a worthy wife of the head. Well, then I have a small gift for you, with which you can become the true head of the clan, if I may say so, Naruto said. And what is it? The girl asked, turning to the blonde. This is one of the lost techniques of the Uzumaki clan, the true blood chain. This is similar to the Kongo Fusa chains, but 10 times stronger. They also have a couple of features. First, they are transmitted from person to person, so you just can't get them. Secondly, the purer the Uzumaki blood in the user, the stronger they are. Third, they have a small side effect, Naruto told me, and closed his eyes and concentrated on something. 40 seconds later, tattoos appeared on the blonde man's hands, which were from the palms to the elbow. Their appearance was slightly fascinating, but they looked like this. On the back of the palm was the coat of arms of the Uzumaki clan, around the coat of arms was a circle with branches on each finger, and on the wrist there was a kind of bracelet on the wrists, the same kind was in front of the elbow, and there were chains in a chaotic order between them. All this beauty was a dull red color. Well, somehow, and now, do you want to get this technique? If so, just put your hands on mine. Mito did not answer and put her palms to the palms of the guy, after which the blonde concentrated with his eyes closed. Tattoos began to climb from the hands of a guy to the hands of a girl. After about 3 minutes, the transfer of the equipment was completed and Mito looked at her hands. Unlike the blonde man's tattoos, hers were blood red in color. Well, that's it. Let's go home, it's already dark and it's going to get cold soon, Naruto said and picked up Mito in his arms again, having said that she would hold on stronger, because now instead of a walking step, he will run at a fairly high speed. And as soon as the girl snuggled closer to the blonde, he simply disappeared. An hour and a half later, they were standing at Mito's house, and before entering the house, she kissed Naruto and disappeared behind the door. The blonde man just smiled again and wandered back to his house. For the third day in a row, Naruto woke up early in the morning, which was not particularly characteristic of him, but circumstances forced him, if I may say so. After doing all the morning procedures quickly and talking with his red-haired shiz, the blonde got dressed and went to the house of the gods. When he arrived, he knocked on the door, and 5 minutes later Hashirama appeared in front of him. I see you decided not to prenup, but you're even more beautiful this way. Well, shall we take a walk around the village? Naruto said and held out his hand to the girl. Thank you for the compliment. Yes, come on, I'll just manage some of the Hokage's affairs. Do you mind? Hashirama said and took the guy's hand. No, I don't mind, the blonde answered, and the couple went for a walk in the village. They went to the shops and cafes that had recently opened. Hashirama was negotiating something with the owners, and Naruto was just standing on the sidelines and sometimes helped to sort out some problems. I didn't think you were so good at solving civil issues. You could easily take the place of Kage if you wanted to. Wait, did you really want to become a Hokage and decided to prepare the ground for yourself with the help of residents? Hashirama asked, who was sitting on a bench next to Naruto. Well, I won't deny that I'm good at solving civil issues, but I don't want to become a Hokage. It's not for me. I got tired of all these papers and sleepless nights 4 years ago, the blonde replied, looking at the clouds. You've only been here a little over 6 months, the girl said with a slight laugh. Stop breaking my brain with your time frame shifts, we're not talking about that right now. I suggest we go to a beautiful place, the blonde man suggested. Yes, come on, we need to rest, Hashirama replied and grabbed Naruto by the hand and dragged him in an unknown direction. We're going the other way, said the blonde, pointing his finger at the mountains that were visible in the distance. The girl only smiled guiltily and abruptly turned in the right direction, dragged the guy further. A couple of hours later, the couple stood in front of the path that led uphill. Do we have to go uphill? The girl asked, looking at the guy. Yes, but not for long and more. Now I'm driving, the blonde man said and walked along the path. 40 minutes later, they came to a snow-covered clearing where, to the surprise of the girl, cherry blossoms bloomed. How beautiful, but why is Sakura blooming in such a cold place? By the way, why aren't you cold? Hashirama asked, shaking from the cold. Well, about the fact that I'm not cold, I began to disperse the chakra through the body with a small part of the fire chakra, and about this place, trees absorb a huge amount of natural chakra that helps them survive the cold, Naruto said and opened a warm raincoat, threw it on the girl. Thank you. By the way, I wanted to ask, how do you know so many beautiful places? In my short life, I have walked around our planet twice on my own 2 feet. I have visited places in the existence of which you will not believe until you see for yourself. Really? Tell, the girl asked, sitting down on the roots of a tree and sitting the girl on his lap, hands on the table. He began to tell about the places he had seen in his travels. After a couple of hours, the sun began to set. The sun has started to set. We need to return to the village, Hashirama said, but she couldn't get up and looked at the blonde in surprise. The date is not over yet. I have a gift for you, Naruto said, and 2 white wooden bracelets appeared in his hands, with red sakura flowers, 3 on each. Is this really for me? They're so beautiful, said the girl looking at the bracelets. They are made of white wood. I put a couple of seals on them that can collect the natural chakra and give it to you. They also strengthen your element of wood, Naruto explained and put bracelets on the girl's hands, which narrowed slightly. And what are the flowers made of? The girl asked another question. I made them from my own blood, but they are purely decorative. Naruto replied, did you make them as well as the pendants? Can you show me how it happens? Okay, the blonde man said and took out a kunai, cut his palms and concentrated. After 30 seconds, the blood began to levitate and gather into a small ball, and after another 10 seconds, the ball turned into a small earring in the form of a Konoha sign. Well, like that. Well, how do you like it? The guy asked. As Madara said, it's fascinating, and as I understand it, to do this, you need the highest control of the chakra. The girl reasoned, we have to go, the sun will set soon, Naruto said, hanging the earring on his ear, took the girl in his arms and went back to the village. The way back took the same time as the way to the clearing. They came to the village when it was dark. Naruto brought Hashirama to her house and put her on the ground. After saying goodbye to each other, the girl kissed Naruto and disappeared into the house, and the blonde trudged home. A week passed, during which everyone was busy with their own affairs, which is why Naruto was openly suffering from bullshit all this time. Deciding that it was time to resume training, the blonde headed to a small lake outside the village. I think no one will bother me here. It's a pity that I don't have Byakugan, otherwise this training would have been much more productive, but come on, the blonde man was talking to himself as he walked to the center of the lake. As soon as he reached his goal, he created 11 clones. You start in a minute, and you stay here, Naruto said, pointing his finger at one of the clones. 10 clones then ran away and hid in the forest, and another one remained standing in front of the original, who began to roll his eyes. As soon as the eyes were blindfolded, the blonde released a wave of chakra, because of which a barely visible fog appeared over the lake. A lot of different throwing weapons flew at the blonde, but the guy didn't even move. And now the weapon almost reached its target, but crashed into the water spikes. Let's go, the clone shouted and attacked the original. A melee ensued. Despite the fact that Naruto's eyes were wrapped up, he fought with his clone on an equal footing. With my eyes closed, my fighting abilities are cut to the level of a clone, which is about -30% of the true strength. I also have water control at an average level, but I think this training should help me correct these shortcomings. Naruto reflected to himself. The melee went on for 5 minutes. The blonde was never able to strike at the clone, as he constantly had to block the throwing weapons that were thrown by the clones who were holed up in the forest. Kato, a fireball. The clone shouted and a ball of fire flew 5 by 5 meters in the direction of the original. The blonde just smiled and dodged the senbons, crossed his arms in front of him. From the outside, it might seem that he was out of his mind once he decided to take the attack with his body, but a water wall appeared right in front of him, which protected him. I thought it would appear faster, but that's what training is for, the blonde muttered to himself. Launch something stronger, Naruto shouted, addressing the clone. That's right, Captain. Kato, an army of fire dragons folding the seals, the clone said and began to exhale a huge amount of fire, which in 5 seconds turned into a dozen dragons, which immediately flew to the original. The blonde man smiled and leaned his palms against the water surface. Another water wall appeared in front of him, but this time it was 3 times larger. The clone's attack was blocked again. I said harder, and this attack was almost the same as the previous one, only the attack area is slightly larger. So the attack was weak, Naruto said in an angry voice. In response, the clone smiled guiltily and divorced. Weak? Is that what you call weak? What are you doing here anyway, huh? He took and scared half the village. The girl screamed, and as the blonde realized, it was Madara. Come on, I decided to arrange a little training and specially left here so as not to disturb anyone. Do not interfere. Then why the hell did a wave of chakra go through the village, and not ordinary, but dense like a bijou? Madara shouted even louder, barely restraining herself so as not to pounce on the blonde with her fists. While the girl was screaming, Naruto managed to remove the blindfold from his eyes. Chakra wave. The blonde man asked himself a question, and after standing in thought for about 10 seconds, he hit his forehead with his palm. Yes, I did that. I didn't think it would be so powerful. I even specially made it half less concentrated than usual. Next time we need to make it 4, or even 8 times less concentrated. We will also need to put a barrier. The blonde reasoned aloud. Wait, how did you even concentrate the chakra outside of your body? Madara asked, surprised by the blonde's words. Naruto just wanted to start explaining how new actors appeared near the lake, namely Hashirama and Tobirama in full combat gear, and on top of that, an ambu squad of 20 people. Madara, Naruto, who and where is the attacker? Hokage asked the question with excitement and anger in her voice. Stupidity attacked. Now it's in the head of this blonde guy, Uchiha replied, pointing her finger towards Naruto, who was still standing in the center of the lake. All the newcomers had their eyes rounded to the size of saucers. What do you mean? Tobirama asked, looking from Madara to Naruto. He decided to train, and according to him, this wave was half less concentrated than usual, Madara told, throwing lightning with her eyes in the direction of the blonde. After standing in a stupor for a minute, Tobirama released the Anbushnikov, and stood next to Madara. Hashirama did the same. Go on, said Uchiha. What are we on? And exactly, I didn't concentrate the chakra outside the body, I just made an outburst. Well, then what meaning did you put into these words? Do you have time for a lecture? In response, all three nodded. Well, let's start from afar. As you know, every shinobi develops his chakra control through meditation, and when they get to the point where meditation no longer bears fruit, no matter how long they meditate, they give up this business because they believe that their control is at the highest level. And now answer me, why shinobi increase their control? It's kind of strange that you ask a question after the story. Well, it doesn't matter. Shinobi increases his control to increase the amount of chakra in the vessel and decrease its amount for the use of techniques. Also, if the control of the chakra is very high, then shinobi can fold the seal with one hand, although there are still rumors that some can fold the seal with their eyes. Tobirama replied, yes, everything is exactly like that, and if you are interested, then these rumors are true, but this is not about that now. What will you answer me if I tell you that meditation is just the first step of increasing control? It's strange to hear about this, when I've only used meditation all my life, but I haven't heard about other methods. Go on, Senju said, it's a pity that none of you have a Byakugan, it would be faster. Well, okay. I have already said meditation is the first stage of the development of control. As you know, for meditation you need to concentrate on running the chakra through the chakra channels. So, again all three nodded. So, the second step will be the chakra run without concentration on this very run. Wait, the chakra flows through the channels anyway, and especially during a fight. Madara expressed her opinion. You're right here. Have you ever tried to speed up or slow down this flow? And even during the battle, the situation is ambiguous. Although the chakra begins to flow faster, but it concentrates in the hands, or rather in the seals, and after reaching the goal, it simply leaves your body as an attack, and this does not affect control in any way. So I hope everything is clear to you on the second stage. Just don't concentrate on the run and that's it. The third stage is, oddly enough, meditation again. I will explain right away that this is not a simple meditation. During the run, you must give the chakra an element. Yes, an element. I hope you don't need to explain that you need to start small. And what happens if you overdo it? Hashirama asked. If the fire will burn, if the wind, then all the insides will turn into porridge. If the earth, then the inside will turn into earth. If water is the same as with the earth, if lightning, then you will fry from the inside. Something like that. Well, the fourth step is the same as the second. This is all I know about the usual control, and now let's move on to the control of the elemental chakra. And what is the difference between an elemental chakra and an ordinary one with an element? Isn't it the same thing? Tobirama asked another question. The elemental chakra is ordinary, but with 100% presence of the elements. With its help, oddly enough, you can control. Yes, I don't know how to explain, it's easier to show, Naruto said, and water spikes appeared around him. That's how it is. Machan, activate the Sharingan and see what's going on here. The blonde asked, looking at the Uchiha. The girl nodded and activated her dojutsu, began to look at the guy. Chakra threads come from his legs, but they are not like those of puppeteers, they act as a framework, Uchiha explained. You're right again. I came up with this when I mixed the chakra with the element and thoroughly studied the techniques of puppeteers. In this case, control is trained in only 2 stages, but the difference is only in meditation. Here you need to focus it in, not the body. Oh, right, I almost forgot, each element needs to be trained separately. Well, at least now it's clear that you trained here, Hashirama summed it up. Well, now about concentration. Each shinobi has a chakra of the same density. Who would not take as an example, their chakra will be different and at the same time the same. What you call the Biju chakra is an ordinary chakra, only more concentrated or thicker, as you wish. What am I leading to? What prevents a person from squeezing the chakra during meditation, in addition to running it? Naruto finished the lecture with a rhetorical question. As I understand it, it was only the basics? Tobirama asked again. Of course. I told you about the types of control and how to train them, but I did not say what you can do with them, although you have already seen the control of the elements. And what can you do with the help of control? Madara suddenly asked a question, blushing slightly. With the help of control, I have all the improved genomes in my arsenal, but I do not own them at the proper level. They are weak and I use them as auxiliary, well, except for the Makutan. I also have the Kikei Genkai of the Kagaya clan, or rather the creation and management of bones. Since I'm not a pure-blood heir, this Kikei Genkai eats more chakra than it should, so I only use it during combat to heal broken bones. I also tried to awaken the dojutsu, but nothing happened, which made me upset at first, but over time I realized that the dojutsu is just a part of your strength, which means that there will be a stronger force and it's not even necessary that it will also be a dojutsu. So I started talking, I need to train, and by the way, you too. Yes, don't look at me like that. If it's peacetime now, it doesn't mean it will continue to be like this, so tomorrow take Mito with you to the natural lake, and now go and don't interfere. Maybe you will accept my offer after all. Tobirama, damn you, I told you that I don't want to become a mentor. I wouldn't bother you if there were free Hunins in the village, but this is the only team that was left without a mentor. Well, if you get into the situation, you've been following me for a week and you're clearly not going to fall behind, tell them that I'm waiting for them at the 10th training ground. Tobirama did not answer and smiled slyly, disappeared into the spray of water. Damn Senju, he is calm and reasonable all the time, and when necessary, he can switch his character to his sister's character. I really didn't want to do this, but I have to, Naruto thought to himself and went to the 10th training ground. Arriving at the training ground in 10 minutes, as expected, he found no one. The blonde decided to meditate and merge with nature to test the attentiveness of his new students. Well, where is our sensei? Tobirama-sama said that he is waiting for us here. A voice rang out after about 20 minutes. Maybe we walked too long and he decided to leave. Another voice was heard. Naruto opened his eyes slightly and began to focus on the students. Less than a second later, the 3 children became whiter than snow and began to look at the blonde. Hello children, I'm your sensei. Introduce yourself, the blonde man said and unfocused his gaze. Maybe you can show us an example. The girl said and sat down in front of the blonde. She's obviously braver than she looks. Well, since you ask so, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I love a lot of things and I don't like a lot of things. There are no dreams, and you don't need to know the goals, but you didn't say anything except the name. it was heard from a boy who also sat down with a blonde and who was clearly from the Hugo clan. If you didn't like my presentation, then introduce yourself. I'm Ryoko Hugo. I like to read books about travel. I don't like when a person is forced to do something, especially when it is done by force. I dream that in my clan there is no division into the main and secondary branches. I also dream of traveling the world. How ironic, a bird that is forever locked in a cage wants to see the world beyond. Again, you will have to drive Hyuga that your fate is in your hands. Now you are. I am Dancer Senju. I love to dance. I want to become a strong kunoichi and prove to everyone that dance can be not only beautiful but also deadly. A strange dream, but doable. And now you. I am a Suru Uchiha. I like to learn something new. I love a lot of things. I don't like it when a person gets power from nowhere and because of this puts himself above others. I want to become strong enough to protect the people I care about. Is this an Uchiha who is not arrogant because he is an Uchiha? So we met, and now you will have a chakra control training, and while she is going, I will try to think through what to teach you. But sensei, we can already walk on trees and water, why should we train control? Dancer asked. Naruto did not answer and smiled slyly, disappeared into thin air. A clone? The children shouted. Not really, I just used a disguise technique. Ryoko can check Byakugan. The blonde man's voice rang out, literally from nowhere. He's really here, still standing in the same place, Hugo said, and after his words Naruto dispelled the technique. Now repeat the same thing. Yes, it's easy, shouted Senju and was about to fold the seals, but her hands were intercepted by Naruto's hands. Did I fold the seals? Does that make sense? Of course. Try to use the technique without seals. The girl chuckled and tried to apply the technique, but she did not succeed. Control is important for every technique, and the higher it is, the more opportunities you will have. And why do we need these opportunities if we will still mainly study the techniques of our clans? You probably haven't realized yet whose students you have become. From this day on, I forbid you to learn anything from other teachers without my permission, and you are also forbidden to study the scrolls yourself. I will teach you everything from scratch, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Answer my question. Did you want to become a shinobi yourself? The children only nodded in response. Then you should understand that shinobi are those who constantly dance with death. These are those who need to kill others to survive themselves. Self-improvement is the only way for shinobi to delay his death in battle. Sensei, I agree that you need to train, but I still don't understand why you need to have a lot of abilities. It is not better to hone a small number of skills so that no one surpasses you than to have a lot of weak techniques. You're partly right. Shinobi that has few perfect techniques is dangerous, but those who have many techniques, though not as strong, are no less dangerous. They are dangerous, but you can still survive in a battle with them. And now think about what will happen if you combine these two types. Shinobi becomes practically invincible. Ryoko replied, you're right again, and even correctly noticed that such a shinobi can still be defeated, because there will always be a stronger force. So, today you have a whole day of control training, and at this time I will think about how to develop you with maximum efficiency. Get started. Hi, the children shouted and sat down in the lotus position under a tall tree. Hello kids, said Naruto walking through the training ground to his students. You're late teacher. Ryoko began to get indignant. A black cat ran across my path. I remind myself of a dog. Sensei, when will you start training us? We've been increasing control for a whole week and that's it. I'm sick of it already, Dancer began to shout, but was immediately interrupted by Naruto. You are lucky, I was finally able to develop a plan for your training. Well, let's get started. Yes, the children shouted in response. A set of physical exercises, Naruto said and held out a piece of paper that came out of nowhere. Do you want us to die? Hugo began to shout, but immediately fell silent when he saw the sadistic smile of the blonde. A list of books you should read in a week. The blonde handed out another piece of paper. After quickly examining the new list, the children's eyes popped from their foreheads to the back of their heads. There are about 100 of them here. The children shouted even louder than before. 98, to be exact. Well, the last list, basic techniques. Go to the library and take the scrolls of the new edition. And now proceed to physical exercises. The children began to perform physical exercises, and Naruto sat down in the shade of a tree and began to read a book. The blonde students suffered for an hour and a half and simply collapsed. You're good, I thought you'd fall off earlier. Meditate for an hour and let's move on to Kenjutsu. The genin sat down in the lotus position and began to meditate, and the blonde man printed out 4 wooden katanas. In 50 minutes. Hello Naruto-kun. Was heard behind him. Naruto turned around and saw Madara walking towards him. Hi Machan. By what fates? Yes, I just got rid of business and decided to go to practice. If you want, we can leave, so as not to interfere. No, you don't need to. I think we'll get along. By the way, what are you teaching them now? During the week they improved their control, and today they started normal training. I'll start teaching them Kenjutsu in 8 minutes. Why not Taijutsu? Usually they start with him. You go to the battlefield with a sword, not with bare hands. Your words make sense. How about a little sparring with swords, wooden or iron? Let's go to the iron ones. Naruto, without answering anything, got up and went to the center of the clearing. The blonde man opened a katana in a dark blue sheath and, drawing his sword, an azure-colored blade appeared to the Uchiha's gaze. Madara stood up against the guy and also printed out her sword, which was given to her by this guy, Dunsher. The blonde man shouted, Eh? Yes sensei? Ouch. Madara-sama and VU are here. The girl began to speak. Calm down, Dansher. Could you give us the go-ahead? Naruto asked and smiled, looking at her. The girl could only answer. Picking up a pebble from the ground, she tossed it into the air. As soon as the stone touched the ground, the guy and the girl immediately took off and immediately found themselves in the center of the clearing and crossed blades. They stood in this position for about 3 seconds and the blonde decided to act first. Taking the girl's blade to the right side, Naruto immediately struck a stabbing blow, which never reached the target. Madara managed to react and dodged a slashing blow from left to right diagonally. Well, greetings were exchanged, and now let's start our dance, the blonde man said and smiled, began to strike so fast that the children could barely keep up with them. Each strike was smooth, deadly, and surprisingly, mesmerizing. Everything that the couple did was really like a dance of 2 colors that grew up in darkness all their lives, but were able to become a light for each other. The sparring had been going on for 15 minutes and with every second it became more and more fascinating, but everything ends, and this dance is no exception. It ended with Naruto stabbing a millimeter from Madara's carotid artery. Naruto's POV. It's still true. When 2 warriors cross blades in the heat of battle, they can read each other's emotions. And now I can say that Madara is experiencing untold joy and happiness. And I, in principle, too. Oh, how I would like this dance not to end forever, but she is not yet strong enough to fight with her 100% strength, but nothing soon she will become stronger and then we will dance again. End POV Naruto, POV Madara. Finally I can see how much stronger I've become. I didn't think he would agree. As always, he started with a sharp blow. Well, let's not lag behind. Here it is, the real battle. I feel death with every part of my body and because of that I am happy? Yes, I'm happy. He doesn't even fight with half his strength. If anyone else had been in his place, would have been furious, but not now. Maybe I subconsciously realized that he is many times stronger than me. It is with him in battle that I am happy. No, not so, now I am in ecstasy. I want it to last forever, but it's not destined to come true. A moment and I lost. His face is very close to mine, I can feel his breath. I didn't think Machan was such a pervert. I can feel your excitement. Don't worry, this will stay between us and, you deserve it, Naruto said and kissed me sharply, and POV Madara, Dansher's POV Naruto-sensei called me, which caused my concentration to fall off. Opening my eyes, I saw that sensei was standing with a naked azure sword and his sword was wet. But before I was surprised, I saw that Madara-san was standing against sensei with a red blade in her hands. I've heard a lot about her and it all made her a monster in the flesh. I was scared and mumbled something, but sensei looked at me and smiled and asked me to give the go-ahead. Was he going to fight with her, but there was nothing to do. I threw a pebble into the air and tried to shake my teammates. They started to grumble something, but immediately shut up as soon as they heard the sound of steel hitting steel. The combatants took one blow at a time, after which sensei said it was time to start dancing. Because of his words, my attention to what was happening increased at times, and as soon as I concentrated, something incredible began. Every step, every blow, every movement, everything fascinated and delighted. It really was like a dance of flowers that grew in the dark. Their whole sparring went on for 15 minutes and to my surprise sensei was able to win, and saying something to Madara in his ear, he kissed her. Dansher's and POV, sensei, genins shouted when they saw what their sensei had done. What? Naruto asked uncomprehendingly, looking at his students. You just PPP, Dansher began to mumble again, simultaneously turning into a tomato. Kissed his girlfriend and what? A girl? The genins shouted again. We got distracted. Take your swords in your hands and let's start training. Hi. Somehow the children gave out and went to take wooden katanas. Are you ready, kids? Yes, sensei. I can't hear you. That's right, sensei. Then I'll wait for you tomorrow morning at the exit of the village. Morning. Naruto stood near the newly built gate and waited for his students. Today, the genin team had to pass a practical exam for knowledge of theory. Well, where do they wear their biju? Fucking Kakashi. His peculiarity of being late is very contagious. You don't even notice that you're infected, and you're already late. Maybe this Hatake is a biological weapon that was sent by one of the villages to infect the whole Konoha with the virus. I'll lie down with bones, but I'll be late. Everything is possible. And here are my students. How quickly they became friends, in just 3 weeks. Well, okay. The blonde man was talking to himself. Hi sensei, the children shouted as they approached their teacher. I didn't think you'd come in time. Usually you are 2 or 3 hours late, and here you even came earlier, Dansher said and began to smile. Allah, 32 is not the limit. I want to disappoint you, because now you are also late, Naruto said and looked at his students with pity. They did not understand at first and looked at their sensei in surprise, but as soon as they understood, their eyes popped out, and they themselves began to stare at the pocket watch that Ryoko took out. It can't be. How could we be late? It's just not possible. Ryoko, activate Byakugan, in case it's Genjutsu, Dansher muttered. Already. We're really late. After Hyuga's words, the trio looked at Naruto with fright, which caused the blonde to break into a smile. Well, what are you so scared of? Everything happens in the first, and now let's go, Naruto said and turned his back on the students and walked away from the village. Evening, the sun sank below the horizon. The group camped on a cliff, sat down near the campfire. Finally a rest. Why did we go so far, sensei? Suru asked, stretching his neck. There are a couple of reasons for this. First, no one will disturb us here. Secondly, it is here that all the medicinal herbs we need grow and the animals we need are found. And now let's get to the essence of the exam, finally, and then they let us into some kind of ass by saying only that you will conduct an exam for knowledge of theory. Dansher began to be indignant, but was stopped by a gesture of the blonde. Eradicate the habit of interrupting without listening to the interlocutor. What am I on? So, the essence of the exam. The bottom line is that you have to survive in the forest, which is beyond the cliff, for a whole month alone. And not just survive, but collect all the items from the list that you will receive tomorrow morning. Wait, sensei, are you saying that we have to survive alone in the forest for a month? Ryoko asked. I've already said that. Now go to bed, get up early tomorrow morning again. The sun rose from the horizon, illuminating the rays of 3 tents on the cliff. The genin somehow woke up and got out of the tents, saw their sensei sitting on the edge of the cliff and admiring the dawn. Are you awake? Then let's get started, come to me. The children looked at each other and silently approached their mentor. First of all, Ryoko, Suru, I forbid you to use dojutsu. But why? It is not always possible to rely on the chakra, and without it your eyes are useless. So you have to do without them. Secondly, now you will receive, as I call it, starter kit, you will get everything else yourself. Well, he told me everything. Here, take a scroll and a list, and go down into the forest. Genins stood in a stupor for a couple of minutes, took a scroll and a piece of paper, and began to descend from the cliff. Naruto's POV. So, they're already in the forest. I think it's worth starting. The blond man thought to himself and folded the seal of concentration with one hand. 7 exact copies of him appeared in front of him. You 3 watched the children, and you 4 put up a barrier around the forest. And now turn around, I need to put the seals of the unification of the mind on you. The clones obeyed the original's order without question, and as soon as the seal appeared on all the clones, they evaporated into Shunshin. I hope you can surprise me. I also want to ask which of the 3 had the harshest conditions. Dansher's POV. Well, what should I do? I've read these books for a while. Remember the stupid head. That's right, we need to find a water source. I think I'll camp there nearby. Senju decided and went to the side where she saw the river from the cliff. It took her an hour and a half to get to her destination. Finally. I think I'll set up camp in this clearing. I wonder what sensei gave us. Dansher took out the scroll that Naruto gave her from her pouch. When she opened it, she saw that there were 5 seals on the scroll. Well, let's start. In the first one we have, tent and sleeping bag. In the second, a pot and a cup. In the third, tanto and kunai. In the fourth, books on kenjutsu. In the fifth, a note, or to be more precise, a note with dates. And that's it? I thought there would be more things. After all, a whole month in the forest to survive, and even alone. I wonder if sensei decided to get rid of us so gracefully. Anything is possible, but now is not the time to think about it. You need to set up camp and go in search of food. Evening, CSR, I could only find mushrooms, and even then it's not a fact that they are edible. Still, it was necessary to read those books more carefully. Maybe I would have already found something of the required. Exactly what is required? I haven't looked at what I need to get to pass this exam. A note. Hello Dansher. I hope that you read this appeal before you set up camp, but if not, then it doesn't matter. Before I give you a list of what you need, let me give you a couple of tips. First, wash the tools thoroughly, as you will have to use them for various tasks. Secondly, use everything you can. And third, don't die. We need to get it. Imagine that 100 items of various origins are listed here. All the loot should be sorted, and not lying in a pile, so you'll have to sew a bag.p.s. Pay attention to the dates, end of the note 100, for a month. I'm finished, but it's worth trying. Further narration will be in the form of a diary. Day 2, nothing interesting happened. Day 6, I was finally able to get meat. Well, in addition, I was able to get a couple more necessary herbs. Day 7, a downpour has started, I hope it will pass soon. Day 14, it's been fucking raining for a whole week. I still don't understand how everything didn't flood here. But I was able to benefit from this, too. During the rain, the animals for some reason stopped hiding and I was able to get everything I needed from the list, so I finally sewed the bag. of hide and veins. Day 16, today the chakra disappeared, I just stopped feeling it. Although I almost didn't use it, but I began to get tired noticeably faster. Most likely the teacher did it. Day 19, I was able to get the last mineral type item, only herbs remained. Day 22, it starts to get cold, if it goes on like this, then I won't have time to collect the rest from the list. Day 28, 2 days before the end of the exam, I have all the necessary items, and I can't move around the forest normally, because it's freezing outside the tent, about -35. Now I'm sure that all the oddities happened because of our sensei. Well, winter can't come in the middle of summer. Thank Kami that he thought of giving us tents that do not let the cold in. I need to figure out how to move in such a cold. Day 29, I decided and put the right skins on the semblance of warm clothes, but it is necessary to move carefully in this, otherwise everything will spread out right in the cold. I think it's worth moving to where I started from. Most likely Sensei is waiting for us on the cliff. 31 days, I was able to get to the cliff, and what do I see here? Sensei and Hokage are sitting in an embrace and have literally taken root, so they are also covered with flowers. So what should I do? Donchers End POV Surah, if this is an exam for knowledge of theory, then according to the books, I should start with a fresh water source. Most likely, someone has already staked out the river that I saw from the cliff, so I'll have to look for something else. Uchiha thought, and after standing for another 5 minutes in thought, he went wherever he looked. 3 hours later, he came to a small lake, which was located among ancient trees. It will do. So, I found the water. What's next? We need to set up camp. I think among the roots will be the very thing. Going to one of the trees, Suru took out a scroll and printed out the contents. Not much. I'm starting to think Sensei is just plain crazy. I even wonder what he's asking us to find there. Come on. Taking out a note from his pouch, Uchiha began to read it. A note: Hello Suru. I want to warn you that this piece of paper will explode in 3, 2, 1. I'm kidding. The paper cannot explode. In general, here's what you need to get. Sad face again, a list of 100 items. All the loot should be sorted, and not lying in a pile, so you'll have to sew a bag. P.S. Pay attention to the dates. End of the note. Not, well, exactly, crazy. I am sure that some kind of trick will happen in the allotted days, so we need to quickly disassemble his cipher. My stomach is rumbling. Which one? We had breakfast before the start. I think we should set up camp and go look for food. Day 2, I started collecting what is written in the list. I plan to hunt and stock up on water for the first week. It is unknown what this madman will send us as a gift. Day 6, today I decided to relax and read the books that the teacher gave me. I hope that something not very terrible will happen tomorrow. Day 7, croaked. The wind started blowing so hard that some trees were uprooted from the ground. Well, how do I look for what I need now? Day 14, finally this hurricane is over. Half of the forest turned into dust, and the craziest thing is that I've been running around the forest all this time and collecting herbs. But I was able to develop Sharingan up to 3 volumes. Day 16, which one? Why did the chakra disappear? Most likely, Sensei tried to do this. So what should I do now without Sharingan? Day 19, I decided to prepare the equipment for now. Suddenly something worse will happen than that hurricane. Day 22, it's getting hotter. I think it's worth getting the remaining herbs and finding a cooler place. Day 28, he clearly wants to roast me, plus 45. My extracted organs will soon start to go out. It is necessary to make a halt in a cave not far away. Day 29, I sat down in a cave, although it's stuffy here, but it's not as hot as outside. Day 31, I finally got to the cliff. If I had spent a couple more hours in this damn forest, I would definitely have taken off my underpants. So what's going on here? Suru fell into a small stupor, because before his eyes, a dancer wrapped in skins is trying to wake Sensei and Hokage, and they, in turn, literally took root. And POV Sura, POV Riko, it's finally started. I almost went crazy from waiting. For a whole month I will be alone with nature. To begin with, it's worth examining what Sensei gave us. Hugo took out a scroll and a note from his pouch. I'll deal with the scroll first. I thought that they wouldn't even give us this, but there is everything for a comfortable stay in the forest. Well, okay, what's on the list? A note. Hi Ryoko. I'm sure you haven't even moved away from the cliff yet, but you've already started reading the list of necessities. I won't pour water on empty. Here's what you need to find sad face again, 100 items. P.S. Pay attention to the dates. End of the note. After all, these are dates, and if I deciphered correctly, then every week there will be a scribe. We need to hit the road. Day 2, I was able to find a water source, namely a small waterfall. I think I'll take him by the center of the map and search from him. Day 6, by today I have run around half of the forest and collected almost everything I need from the list. Tomorrow should find the fog, according to the teacher. I don't think he'll stop me, but it's worth getting ready anyway. Day 7, thank Kami that I decided to stock up on food yesterday. The fog is so thick that nothing can be seen beyond the outstretched arm. As much as I'd like to, I'll have to set up camp. Day 14, because of this fog, I sat in one place for a whole week. I have never been so bored before. Even the books given out by the teacher do not help to dispel boredom. I hope that this will not happen again. Day 16, today, as it was written, the chakra disappeared. Now you can't run through trees and water. Day 19, congratulate me, I ran around the whole forest, but strangely I never met those two, although we were supposed to meet a couple of times. Day 22, pitch darkness should begin soon. I'll have to use those glowing stones from the list. I hope Sensei won't mind. Day 28, nothing interesting happens, although eternal night brings some problems. Day 29, I move towards the cliff. Day 31, I climbed the cliff and what did I see? I saw Dancer, wrapped in skins, yelling at an almost naked Uchiha. And POV Riko, what the fuck are you doing here in your underpants? And why do you flaunt like this in such a cold? Senju shouted at Sura, what kind of frost? Did you fall off the Hokage cliff? It's hot out there in the woods. I almost parted with my underpants there. Why did you even wrap yourself in furs in this heat? Well, why are you yelling? Ryoko, who had just gotten up, asked, why did you put stones on yourself? Dancer and Sura asked in unison. It's a long time to explain. What's wrong with him? Hugo asked the question and pointed at Naruto. Nothing. The blonde man replied, this chapter will describe what Naruto did while the children were surviving in the forest. I hope you can surprise me, Naruto whispered, then sat down in the lotus position and began to meditate with the help of the natural chakra. Hey, red-haired shiz, are you awake? The blonde man asked the question in his head. Not anymore. I was already starting to think that you forgot about me. You keep running around, sometimes with students, then with girls. The bass voice of the fox sounded in the guy's head. Well, what else should I do? I started a new life, without wars, murders, masks and serving the old senile. Now I live the way I want, namely, my house, students and my beloved girls. Thought Naruto and laughed with the fox. Laughter. Well, yes, everything is going 100% according to your plan, especially about the girl. Everything is going 300%. Speaking of girls, right now Hashirama is sitting right in front of you and admiring nature. What? Why is she here and why didn't I feel her? You're so focused right now that you wouldn't even feel me. Now go, one of your sweethearts is waiting for you. Naruto came out of his subconscious and opening his eyes, the blonde saw Hashirama, who was sitting opposite him and looking into the forest. Is the Honorable Hokage shirking her duties? Naruto said, which made the girl scared and looked at the blonde man reproachfully. I did all the paperwork, and for everything else there was my clone. I decided to see what kind of exam you decided to hold for your students and the girl did not say and became red as a tomato. And admire nature with me, the blonde man finished for has harem. Yeah, then how about observing nature on a different level? It sounds tempting. What do I need to do? First, take off your armor and sit on my feet, I'll do the rest. Without thinking twice, Hashirama followed the guy's instructions, and undressed to the chin, comfortably settled on the guy's legs. Close your eyes and relax, the blonde whispered in the girl's ear and began to accumulate a natural chakra. After a while, Hashirama felt that her chakra hearth, as if someone picked up and began to pour natural chakra into it. The feeling of this process was not pleasant, but thanks to Naruto's efforts, they were minimized. After a while, the girl felt that her chakra, mixed with the natural one, began to dissipate and disappear. Hashirama, open your eyes. The blonde's voice was heard in the girl's head. Opening her eyes, the girl saw a huge, empty space. Now we are one with nature. Hashirama's voice came from behind him. What? The girl asked and turned around at the blonde man's voice. Opening her eyes, Hashirama saw an empty space. To the surprise of the girl, Naruto's appearance has changed beyond recognition. Instead of the already familiar white kimono, the guy was wearing black samurai armor, which was blacker than night. A kitsune mask with small horns appeared on the blonde's face, and a straw hat appeared on his head, which, like the armor, was blacker than night. The hair had become twice as long and now reached to the heels. It also caught the eye that there were 20 swords around the blonde. Well, the image was completed by Sakura with bloody petals, on the roots of which Naruto was sitting. Naruto, is that you? Why do you look like that? Yes, it's me. I look like this because that's how nature remembered me. In what sense? Literally. Nature is a living space that remembers all your deeds committed on its territory, but in addition to remembering your most distinguished human version, it creates an image of the so-called spiritual tree. A spiritual tree? Naruto said nothing and pointed his finger first at Sakura, and then somewhere behind Hashirama's back. Turning in the indicated direction, the girl saw, oddly enough, a fir tree. The trunk of the tree was unusually huge, and the branches were spreading. A great woman who could become a support for everyone, like a tree trunk for branches, and is also extremely beautiful, like a goddess, the blonde man said, suddenly moving to Hashirama. Out of surprise, the girl jumped away from the source of the words and stood in a fighting stance. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. By the way, what are these swords? You can say that they are my children. Again, in what sense? Each of these swords was created by me, and here they are because they are created from what nature gave and pieces of my soul. And why do you need so many swords at all? Well, most of them were created as a gift, like this one, and a couple are still in my possession, Naruto said, and a sword in a black scabbard flew into his hands. The blonde man pulled the blade out of its scabbard and an orange-colored blade appeared to his harem. It's Madara's sword. She says she dotes on him. If that's the case, then if Madara were here in your place, this sword would most likely take on a human form. I'll answer your question right away. Because the pieces of our souls joined together and created a new soul, so we can definitely say that he is our child. What? This is not fair and not according to plan. As soon as Hashirama realized that she had blurted out too much, she immediately blushed. Not according to plan? Are you three? Well, yes, and now if you don't mind, let's admire nature. That's what we came here for. Okay, Naruto said and stood up against the girl. Without saying a word, the blonde poked his fingers into Hashirama's forehead, and as soon as his fingers touched the girl's skin, he crumbled into red sakura petals. The girl wanted to say something, but the landscape in front of her eyes abruptly changed from nothing around to a colorful meadow with knee-high grass. Hashirama wanted to say something again, but she was interrupted again by the changing landscape. This time, a huge waterfall appeared in front of the girl, which flowed into a small river. Over the next couple of hours, the landscapes replaced each other. Each landscape did not linger for more than a couple of moments, but at the same time it clearly and in every detail fell into the girl's memory. It was something. It's like I've been to every place on the planet. I want to see it all live. Naruto. Will you help me with this? Hashirama asked after she came to her senses. In response to this, Naruto took off his mask and smiled. We have to go, the blonde man said and clapped his hands. Well, what the hell are you yelling about? Uzumaki asked his students, and? You woke up sensei. Explain what happened here at all. I mean, why are roots and flowers growing out of you, and why are you sitting with Hokage-sama in an embrace? We are sitting in an embrace because we are a couple, and the roots are a Makuden as a couple. Sensei, your girlfriend is Madara-sama, or you broke up? No, we didn't break up with her. It's just that Madara and I fell in love with this blonde at the same time and decided to confess to him at the same time. And you know what he said, I won't choose one of you, because I love you both, Hashirama said and tried to squeeze even harder into the blonde. After the girl's words, the children were in mute shock, just stood and looked at their sensei. You don't want anyone to know about our relationship, Naruto whispered in the elder Senju's ear. I don't want to give in to Madara, she also said in a whisper. Okay. Hey, you three, take your revenge. We're going back to Konoha. Naruto walked through the streets of Konoha. He was walking towards Mito's house, since a couple of days ago, she asked him to come to dinner in the evening. The guy came when the sun had already set. After knocking on the door, Naruto began to wait for the hostess, who opened the door just a couple of seconds later. Thank you for coming, Naruto, and I'm sorry I didn't warn you, the girl said in a whisper, while the blonde man came into the house. The guy just wanted to ask a question. They say, what are you apologizing for? But the girl was no longer in the hallway. The blonde decided that she went to the kitchen, so he went to the kitchen, logically. But as soon as the guy went into the kitchen, 3 words, kitchen, in one sentence, yes, I'm good, he saw someone he didn't expect, namely, Naruto. Meet my father and the head of the Uzumaki clan, Ashina Uzumaki, Mito said, and for some unknown reason for the blonde, her face drooped, although he guessed why exactly. Well, why today? Why did he decide to come today? I wanted to walk without rings on my left hand for at least another year. Why am I being punished like this? Naruto thought. Well, if nothing can be changed, then we'll have to remember the rules and laws of these damn scarlet-haired devils, the blonde man thought and bowed to the head of the clan, thereby asking permission to sit at the table. Sit down, child, said the old man, pointing to the chair opposite. Naruto bowed once more and sat down in the indicated place. As soon as the blonde man sat down on the chair, he immediately felt that his body was bound by the seal of paralysis. Damn old man, not only did he show up when he wasn't expected, he's also going to conduct inspections. I'm usually a calm person, but this grandfather was able to piss me off. Well, now I'll arrange it for him. The blonde decided and began to wait until the food was served. Can you tell me about yourself, child? Ashina asked, looking at his daughter's boyfriend with a searching look. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I only know about my parents that my mother was from Uzumaki, and my father was from Namikaze. At the moment I am 21 years old. I am the mentor of the Genin team and who raised you. Since your parents died at your birth, until relatively recently, I lived with my grandfather, who left the Uzumaki clan and traveled the world. And his name was Taquetsu, unsurpassed. I hope my brother was able to give you the parental love that you were deprived of. Now let's have dinner, said the head of the clan, and taking the chopsticks in his hand, he began to eat sushi. Let the show begin. Naruto said to himself and, as if nothing had happened, began to eat. Seeing that the blonde under the influence of the seal moves as if nothing had happened, a shadow of surprise flashed in the eyes of the head, because he put this seal and he did not stint on its strength. As soon as the blonde noticed the surprise in Ashina's eyes, he began to focus his gaze on him. Less than a couple of moments later, the head of Uzumaki appeared on the table with one movement and pasted another seal on the blonde, but before he could remove his hand, Naruto grabbed his hand and smiled bloodthirstily, disappeared along with the head in a flash of lightning. The couple turned out to be at Naruto's personal training ground, which was located outside the village. So what does that mean, Ashina-san? You know that if the groom has no parents, then the father of the bride should check the strength of the applicant and decide whether he is worthy or not. I know that, but the verification must take place after the consent of both parties. Yes, it is, but I am already old, which is why I have to hand over the post of head to the most worthy. Isn't Mito going to be the head? Alas, but no. Only a man can become the head. I have already been searching among the residents of Uzushio, but suddenly it turns out that my daughter is dating a half-breed who came out of nowhere, and also owns the lost treasure. Maybe you can tell me who you really are if you win, Naruto said and smiled. Well, if that's your requirement, then. Ashina did not say enough and abruptly appeared in front of the blonde. A battle ensued in taijutsu, where the opponents were not inferior to each other, but after a couple of minutes the head of the Uzumaki clan began to lose ground. Ashina-san, your style in taijutsu is good, but you should not rely only on seals and remain unprotected. Yes, you're right, but there were no people before you who could move after 2 seals. So, shall we continue or stop? It was just a warm-up, Naruto said with a smile and printed out a blue katana. Ashina did not lag behind the opponent and also printed out a katana, which was white with the signs of the Uzumaki clan. The couple again came together in a duel, which caused the sound of steel hitting steel to resound around. The fight was on a par again and was only gaining momentum with every second. 5 minutes had already passed, and no one was going to give up, but on the contrary, they only got excited and began to fight for life and death. Well, brat, are you ready to give your soul to Shinigami? Ashina asked, smiling at the same time. Only after you, old man, otherwise I still want to smoke the sky, Naruto replied, who was also smiling. The opponents stood against each other, preparing for the last blow. A moment later, they switched places, and simultaneously fell to the ground. Well, what did you try to kill each other for? Tired of living, she began to scold Mito, who was sitting by the tree. But they didn't die, so calm down, Mi-chan, there's nothing to worry about, nothing. My father and my lover almost killed each other, and I have to be calm? Yes, you understand what I was imagining for myself while I was getting here, but I didn't have time to finish. The red-haired one, as Ashina came up to her and put a small tiara on her head. And, the girl was surprised and looking from the smiling father to the blonde, finally noticed on his head, almost the same tiara. The wedding is in 2 months, so calm down and go rest. And Naruto, and this young man needs to make 2 more marriage proposals, but before that you take your lady of the heart home. The last sentence was addressed to the blonde, who muttered something, got up and approached the girl. What about you, father? And I'm going home to Uzushio. I have urgent business, so I'll take my leave, Ashina said and nodded to the blonde. Mito wanted to object to something, but Naruto put his hand on her shoulder and moved with her to her house. That's where we'll drink, Naruto said, standing at the cliff, while printing things from the scroll. I never would have thought that there are such beautiful places near Konoha, although I listened to your girl's stories about your dates, Tobirama said, approaching the blonde man. It's just that you have a military mindset and the main thing for you is practicality, not beauty. Something is true, although sometimes it is useful to just relax and admire nature. 10 minutes later, a clearing was covered on the cliff. Well, like a clearing, Naruto dragged a whole bar to the clearing. He even brought a table with a grill. I'm just wondering what you don't have in the scrolls? Tobirama asked, surprised. I have everything I might need. I even have a couple of scrolls with earth lying around. So, we came here to talk about what I have or to have a decent drink, your truth. Pour it. Over the next couple of hours, Naruto and Tobirama were having a good time. talking about nothing along the way. CSR, what else should we drink to? I can't think of anything, the blonde man asked, slightly intoxicated. Oh, right. You and I didn't drink to your appointment as the head of 3 great clans at once. The ash-haired man said and began pouring sake. Wait, how about 3? Just don't tell me that the Seiju clan and the Uchiha clan decided to make me the head, but this can't be. I'm not even part of them. Somehow you're joking badly, Tobarama. I mean, I'm kidding. Didn't they tell you that a triple inauguration will take place after the wedding? Knowing you, I was shocked how you, knowing what you are going to do, walk around all so joyful. I wrote everything off that you're getting married soon, but now everything falls into place. Hey, are you even here? Naruto was sitting in frustration. He had just come to terms with the fact that he would become the head of the Uzumaki clan, when such news fell on his head. Tobarama, who will drink who, said the blonde, and taking a bottle of sake, abruptly opened it and began to drink from the throat. Yes, as you are still relatively sober. I remember that when I first met you, you fell down after 4 bottles, and now you've eaten 2 boxes into 1, it's simple, then my body didn't fully recover, but now I'm healthy as a bull. A couple more hours passed. The number of drunk boxes exceeded a dozen, and so much fried meat was eaten that it was possible to feed a quarter of Konoha. Conversations about nothing smoothly flowed into conversations for life. By the way, how are your genins? Tobarama asked. They are very capable, though very impatient. They constantly demand to teach them cool techniques and are constantly angry that I answer them that they haven't even learned the base yet, although after 10 explanations they begin to understand the meaning of this or that action. Well, now tell me about your own. Kampai shouted the last word to Naruto and drank a cup. Masu, sake, wow. Went well. Yes, what should I tell? My team is no different from the others, except that I have 4 genins, not 3. Each of them is already at the level of a strong chunin, and in some skills even at the level of Takabetsu Hunin. I basically have nothing else to teach them, they have to go through everything else themselves. Kampai, the sun began to set over the horizon. A couple of minutes ago, the 20th case of sake was finished, and any of the bijou could envy the amount of meat eaten. Not Tobarama, you're too young to beat me in shogi. I'm half a year older than you. Arch, damn. Lost again. How do you do that? I can play on equal terms with the Nara clan. Stop whining and substitute your forehead, the blonde man said, and with lightning speed, with a snap, knocked Senju on his back. You ask what's going on here, and what happens is that 2 shinobi gods from Konoha, drunk, did not come up with anything better than playing shogi on the snaps, while saturating their fingers with the maximum amount of chakra. If it wasn't for Naruto's regeneration and Tobarama's water body, they would have cracked each other's skulls. The evening began to flow smoothly into the night, but the 2 walking on the cliff were not going to finish their party. What they haven't done in the last couple of hours. They put seals on the speed, measured who water vehicles attack further, who will be able to climb the cliff faster without legs and the like, and now they couldn't think of anything better than to hit each other with the strongest technique. Naruto and Tobarama faced each other at a distance of 2 meters and began to prepare their strongest techniques. Naruto's right hand was covered with black bone armor, after which, with the help of a chakra, he created a small blade of gray color, 15 centimeters in length. Tobarama had a similar technique, but the blade was thicker and consisted of water. But no matter how similar the techniques were, their essence was different. Naruto's blade consisted of yin and yang chakras, which is why the blade could split techniques. Tobarama's technique consisted in the fact that water needles move in a chaotic manner in a water blade, which break out of the blade and destroy everything at the molecular level. According to the Rasen Shuriken type, the guys were facing each other. Each of them smiled maliciously and after a moment crossed blades. The blade of the blonde could not completely destroy the Senju technique, since the Uzumaki blade had to destroy every needle. Well, The needles were created from the Tobarama chakra. Nothing happened for a couple of seconds, but suddenly a hum began to emanate from the technicians, and after a couple of seconds there was an explosion. "Hey, Tobarama, are you alive there?" Naruto shouted. Hanging on a branch with a pierced chest, "Yes, everything is fine, only a piece of rock has broken my head." It was heard from the forest. 5 minutes later, two guys sat down at a miraculously intact table. You will ask again, how did these two manage to survive? To which I will answer, Naruto survived thanks to his not-human regeneration, but Tobaram because his body consists of water. Well, one more and we will return to the village. Rather approved than asked Uzumaki. Of course, Tobarama said. After a quick drink and sealing the table, the two guys ran to the village along the upper tracks, sometimes falling to the ground. Well, where is this blonde guy hanging around? It's 2 hours before the start, and he just disappeared, right from his own house and village. There is only one option where he could have gone, Tobarama thought to himself, after which he whistled, amplifying the whistle with his chakra. After a couple of seconds, 5 people appeared in front of the ash-haired man, immediately getting down on one knee. They were dressed in standard Umbu equipment, and their faces were hidden by masks of mythical animals: phoenix, dragon, griffin, wyvern, Pegasus. "Who Tobi-sama needs to find?" the dragon asked Naruto Uzumaki. "There are suspicions that he was abducted by other hidden villages. I hope you don't have to explain how important the heir of the 3 great clans is. You have an hour and a half." "Hi," Anbushniki shouted and disappeared into the white haze. Naruto's POV. The blonde woke up in a dark room, with water up to his ankles. At first, the guy thought that he was in his subconscious, but after a couple of seconds he realized that this was not the case, because it was not possible to wake up in his subconscious. You can appear in it, you can enter it, you can tighten the biju in it, but it is not possible to wake up in it. Opening my eyes that the room was dark only because of the closed eyes. LOL, I forgot to open my eyes. Like a brilliant genius, and sometimes an idiot is an idiot. The blonde saw that he was swimming in a lake, but not in a simple one, but in a cave, so there was also no ceiling, which opened up a beautiful view of the sky. So where am I? It's definitely not the subconscious or the summoning world, so it's the real world. Crazy. Schizophrenia. Kurama, why is he silent? He was not silent once. Did he really leave? No, he couldn't. He promised he wasn't asking me. He promised that he would always be with me and would keep me from falling apart. Kurama, where are you? Please come back. Kurama, I'm splitting up, please help. I beg. Not. Leave me, NYA. Naruto muttered to himself while his mind was covered with cracks of madness. You ask what's going on, because everything was fine, and now something is happening, incomprehensible. And the answer is quite simple if you know what happened to the blonde in his world. On one of the tasks, he again crossed the line and danced with death, and as usual he was able to survive, but the consequences of a fatal head wound still remained, namely, his mind and personality crumbled into thousands of different pieces. From a first-class and strongest shinobi, he turned into a constantly muttering body that changes its identity every 10 seconds. He would have simply been killed by reprinting the fox into a new Jinchuriki, if not for this very fox. Surprisingly, Kurama was able to assemble his mind and personality into what it was before, but not to the end, which is why he constantly had to keep the resulting porridge in a collected state. The fox could not leave the body of his Jinchuriki for a long time, but at the same time leaving half of his chakra to hold porridge. In this case, not only Kurama, even his chakra was not in Naruto's body. Well, as you understood, his ailment began to manifest itself. Still muttering something, Naruto reached the shore and began to walk deeper into the cave. And POV Naruto, POV of Tobaram. Well, where the hell is he? How could he have disappeared at all? so much so that even the barrier did not detect him. Thinking to himself, Tobirama walked along Konoha until 3 palms rested on his right shoulder. Turning around, he saw 3 brides bursting with rage. To me P.I.A. flashed through the head of Pepelnovolosov, while he was thinking over what to hang on their ears. Tobirama, do you happen to know where Naruto is? Hashirama asked, releasing all of her ki. I definitely remembered. He remembered that the most beautiful kimonos are sold in the land of demons, so he decided to run there and buy one piece for you. Are you sure about it? I think he would have warned before leaving, and I don't think he went after them on the wedding day. He just remembered about it today and decided that you shouldn't worry, because you need to prepare for the ceremony. Tobirama ran his eyes over the girls' faces, while realizing that they would not believe it, but he hoped that they would think that he had run away for gifts anyway. But the hopes for a good life of the younger brother of the head of Senju were destroyed by Umbu the dragon, who appeared on the side of Tobirama and, falling on one knee, began to speak. Tobi-sama, we were able to find a faint trace of his chakra. He went into a crevice on the mountain, but we could not get there because of the barrier. Who were you looking for? Asked Okage, looking at Anbushnik, and then without thinking for a long time, he told her everything. Tobi-sama ordered us to find Naruto Uzumaki, since he was missing. There are suspicions that he was stolen by other villages to blackmail you by Hokage-sama. All 3 brides looked from the dragon to Tobirama. From this look, even Biju would be covered with cold sweat. What to say about a person, having expressed with a look, you will tell us everything later and you will die with torment. The girls turned their gazes back to the Anbushnik dragon. I order you to lead us to the place found. There is a Hokage-sama. Now I'm definitely P.I.A. Tobirama thought to himself and ran after the girls. End POV of Tobiram. 20 minutes later, the 5 were at a small crevice in the mountain and, as the dragon said, the descent was blocked by a barrier. Whoever, no matter how he tried, but to penetrate or remove the barrier. It took about half an hour of unsuccessful attempts, and so they would have continued if, to the surprise of the whole 5, 2 nine-tails, the size of an Inazuk dog, came running to them, without saying a word. Both foxes began to fire at the barrier with Bijou. Ladies, what's going on here? Mito asked, having moved away from surprise. The most terrible death is murder. All the other tailed ones conspired, and since there is no restraining seal on Naruto, they used the technique of forced summoning, and then bound me with seals. I tried to get away, but they, you see, they thought that I wanted to tell him what they wanted to give him for a wedding, so they tied me even tighter. To get out, I had to break my paw from 5 places, and after briefly explaining what they had done, we ran along his chakra trail. As soon as Kurama finished speaking, the second Kurama was able to break through the barrier. As soon as the fox succeeded, both Kuramas immediately jumped to the bottom. The 5, who didn't understand anything, also jumped after them. And what kind of death is murder anyway? Madara asked. Not when to explain, you'll see for yourself when we find him, but I'll warn you right away, if you want to survive, then hit with all your might. No one understood the fox's words. After 5 minutes of continuous running, 5 people and a couple of foxes were attacked by something. You need to knock him out so that I can return to him and gather my mind and personality. Into one. Kurama shouted and launched a Bijou lady at something. What? The 5 shouted, looking at the fox, who did not stop watering something with Bijou ladies. I'll explain everything later. And now act, reluctantly, but everyone who arrived began to attack something that began to be covered with bone armor. Seeing this, Kurama shouted that no one would skimp on techniques. Tobirama and Madara went into close combat. Senju used a water blade, and Uchiha used a katana given by the blonde. Hokage and Anbushnik used their strongest techniques. At least they used those that would not be able to bring down the vault of the cave. Hashirama used Mokuton and Doton, and the dragon Raiden and Suiton. Mito was there as a support. Princess Uzumaki put up barriers and replenished the attacker's chakra. At first, they managed to inflict at least some damage, but with each passing minute, something became more and more covered with bone armor, and a gray chakra began to break out of the body. And only the long blonde hair reminded everyone that they had an old acquaintance in front of them. Damn it. It's bad. In a couple of minutes, his fighting style will change and it will become much more difficult for us to defeat him, Kurama shouted, after which both foxes began to fold seals. Ninpo Kitsune, the great samurai Kitsune, the foxes shouted, after which a large amount of chakra burst out of them, which condensed sharply, thereby forming armor on the foxes. Past the armor, the chickens had katanas, one for each tail. Senju, Uchiha. Changing, there is, while the foxes came together with something in close combat, Madara and Tobirama jumped back to Mito, so that she would restore their chakra. Yes, how strong are you, huh? This is the third time I've run out of chakra. The dragon was indignant, who was in shock, because in front of his eyes 4 of the strongest shinobi of the village and 2 Biju cannot win this. It's something. Suddenly, a wave of chakra washed over everyone, which was sent by something. Everyone looked at it and found a not very pleasant sight. The bone armor began to fall off. Everything would be fine, but along with it the skin also fell off, exposing muscles and meat. As soon as the armor peeled off, the skin began to build up back to its rightful place, while the bone armor also began to build up, but this one was white. After 10 seconds, something stopped building up the top layer, and for everyone it appeared in a new role. If earlier it resembled a beast with a black skin, now it looked like a demon, but not the most ordinary, but one of the lords of hell, because its aristocratic appearance inspired fear. That's bad enough. If we can't beat him in this form, then not only we, but he will eventually die, so we all have to give our all. After the words of the fox, everyone became even more serious. I think their seriousness is now 120%. Hashirama was covered with the bark of a tree that resembled scales and entered the sage mode. Madara activated the VMSH and turned the katana into a gunbai with a scythe. Mito released the chains of true blood and removed the restraining seals. Tobirama, in the manner of his sister, was covered with water and created a second blade. The dragon was given the order to retreat, as he would only get in the way. He's held out against him long enough, because he's an Umbu search engine, not a fighter. Ku, Raa, Ma. I. L, Lo, May, Y, S, P. Mo. Something was heard from. There was so much pain in that voice that all the people in the cave turned white as snow. All later, the fox shouted and ran at the blonde. Something just took a step forward and in an instant was in front of Kurama, and sent Ginger flying with a kick, and he became even stronger. I'm sorry, brother, but we're going to have to hurt you a little, Tobirama said, and then threw something at the blonde. The blonde abruptly shifted to the side and, to the surprise of everyone, was able to block Tobirama's blow with his hand. Well, how to block? Something's right arm was pierced by 2 senju blades. Come on, Kurama shouted again and rushed to something. While the fox was running to the blonde, Mito and Hashirama bound something with their techniques, while sucking, GYG. Sucking smiley face, chakra. Madara also did not stand aside and attacked the blonde, striking at the tendons. You need to hold out for another 10 minutes, Kurama said, before being absorbed into the body of something. Easier said than done. We have already stuffed him with everything we can, and all his wounds are healed in a couple of tens of seconds. Tobirama, how long will you last in the near? 3 more minutes. Uchiha, I won't have enough for more. Then sit down and rest. I'll try to stall for time. Madara and something came together in close combat. Well, as a fight. It was a beating of the poor Uchiha, because all her blows were blocked, and she herself received about 5 blows per second. Moreover, all the blows were blocked with their hands, and the blows were inflicted with their feet. But the head of the Uchiha clan must be given his due. She was able to hold out against the blonde for 4 whole minutes, while completely using up her strength. Tobirama joined the battle against something next. Thanks to the respite provided, he was able to restore his chakras a little, which helped him to last 10 seconds longer than Uchiha. Have you played enough? We have a serious problem here, and you just need to fight and compete, Mito said, approaching Madara and Tobirama, who were barely conscious. Well, of course. It's not every day you get to fight Naruto when he doesn't hold back. And don't worry, we have about 2 minutes left. I don't think harem and the fox will last less than us. 2 minutes later, something stopped. The madness in his eyes came to naught, the bone armor began to fall off his body. At the same time, as last time, peeling off the skin, I was able to restore his mind and personality, but if we were a couple of minutes late, he would not be able to be returned, and he would not survive another such time. Although I am able to help him, even I cannot collect something reasonable from the dust. And now, call for reinforcements. No one except Mitya is able to walk on his own 2 feet. Kurama said, taking control of Naruto's body for obvious reasons. The wedding was postponed a week ahead. Did you think back? While everyone was in the hospital, Kurama told what exactly happened to Naruto and why this is happening to him at all. Everyone was shocked by the details about the blonde's past, because even the technique did not show this moment of life. Also, the fox told what exactly the tailed ones wanted to give. The gift turned out to be the eyes of the sage of the 6 paths from this world, but for unknown reasons Naruto refused them. Today we have gathered to witness the union of souls. Uzumaki Naruto, do you agree today in the face of God to marry Senju Hashirama, Uchiha Madara and Uzumaki Mito? Are you ready to live with them in sickness and in health, in wealth and poverty, in joy and sorrow? Yes, and you, Senju Hashirama, Uchiha Madara and Uzumaki Mito, are you ready? Yes, then by the power given to me by me, I declare you one big and friendly family, and Tatsu was with you.